The grand wedding transforms into a public humiliation for the Count's daughter. Her best friend confesses she's pregnant with her fiancé's child. The girl flees the chapel in desperation, only to meet her death at the bottom of the staircase. After rebirth, she thought she'd found salvation, but this is just the beginning of endless torment. She's forever trapped in a curse that repeats the day of her wedding. In the dark forest, rain pours down mercilessly, washing over everything. Alethea lies at the bottom of a cliff, her body racked with pain, unable to move. She realizes clearly that death is coming for her once again, because this is far from the first time she's experienced such a desperate end. Her memory pulled back to where the nightmare began, her wedding day. Dressed in her wedding gown, she should have been the happiest bride in the world. But her best friend Selena brings news that steals the air from her lungs. Selena's face glows with barely concealed excitement as she announces her pregnancy. She even says the father promised to leave his current partner and marry her instead. Watching Selena ramble on and on, a terrible thought takes shape in her mind. She loses patience and directly asks if the man is her fiancé, Victor. In the wedding hall, guests gather around Victor, showering him with praise. Victor responds humbly, his face wearing a perfect smile. At that moment, Ellie bursts into the chapel without warning. A maid tries to stop her, but she shoves her aside. She calls out Victor's name loudly, drawing everyone's attention. A flash of displeasure crosses Victor's face as he tells her to return to the dressing room. But Ellie walks straight toward him and gently cups his face with her hands. The instant she touches him, she understands everything. Those dirty desires and betrayals she never wanted to know lay bare before her eyes. The next second, Victor violently swats her hands away. He accuses her of physical contact before the wedding ceremony. Ellie's heart sinks to the bottom. Then she exposes his betrayal in front of everyone. After speaking, she turns and flees this suffocating place without looking back. Victor calls after her anxiously, trying to explain it was just an accident. Tears blur her vision as she mocks herself for being so naive. She once naively believed the three of them would be happy forever. As she runs, a figure appears silently behind her. A strange red glow flashes in that person's eyes. Then a hand shoves her violently down the long staircase. Her body tumbles down, blood splattering across the cold steps. Ironically, that day became her first death. Afterward, she wakes up in her familiar bed. The maid's voice comes through, urging her to get up and prepare for the wedding. In that moment, she thought, divine mercy had given her a second chance. However, this is merely the beginning of countless painful cycles. She once went through with the wedding as if nothing happened, only to die of poisoning. She also tried to forgive those two's betrayal, only to perish in flames. Another time, she chose to run away in fear, only to be stabbed to death. She repeatedly experiences death, then returns to the starting point. The endless loop traps her tightly with no escape. At some point, only one thought remains in her mind. She wants to live. She yearns to be free from this painful cycle of death. But fate finds her once again, pushing her to the brink. This time, she lies in the freezing rain, waiting for the end. Just then, a figure approaches quietly. Their shadow falls across her body. A faint spark of hope ignites in Ellie's heart as she begs them to save her. The person's voice comes out muffled, saying they don't want to see her in such a miserable state. Then the figure in black robes crouches down, revealing a smile. He says goodbye to her and promises not to forget her kindness. Afterward, he raises the knife in his hand and ends her life. As her consciousness fades, Ellie's eyes widen in shock. A brand new life goal forms in her mind. Find the killer. She's determined to find that despicable person who keeps wishing for her death. Through countless cycles of blood and pain, Ellie has figured out the pattern of the loop. Every time she returns to this morning 3 months before the wedding, and that killer hiding in the shadows is terrifyingly persistent. No matter how she struggles, they always find a way to kill her. She painfully wonders why she never noticed someone who hated her this much, who exactly harbors such deep motive and hatred toward her. Suddenly, the black-robed figure's words echo in her mind. Your death benefits me. A wild idea takes root in her heart, making her tremble yet feel determined. Since she can't escape, then before they make their move, she'll find and eliminate them first. The next day, the maid Emma brings the family's chief physician, Benedict. Ellie knows this doctor is highly skilled. He also possesses a kind heart, and this kindness is the perfect weakness she must exploit right now. She sends the maid away and makes a shocking request to Benedict. She wants him to spread word that she's terminally ill and doesn't have long to live. Benedict's face pales in shock as he firmly refuses this illegal and immoral act. But Ellie remains calm. She quietly mentions his private practice of prescribing painkillers to the poor. She knows this good deed also walks the edge of legality. Perfect leverage. Though guilt tugs at her heart, to survive, she has no other choice. She begs Benedict to help her this one time. Finally, the kind doctor nods his head heavily. Soon, rumors spread that the young lady of House Ashford is dying. Victor and Selena rush over upon hearing the news, performing their concern. Selena nestles in Victor's arms, crying pitifully. But Ellie only finds this grief sickeningly fake. Victor Victor urgently asks how much time she has left, his tone full of worry. He even swears that no matter what, he won't break their engagement. Ellie sneers inwardly, seeing through his act of maintaining a devoted image. After her death, he can be with Selena without any burden. Just then, Selena suddenly mentions the head of House Winterfrost. She pretends to speak up for Ellie, blaming that important figure for not visiting. Ellie immediately understands. She just wants to repeatedly emphasize the fact that she's dying. Winterfrost is one of the 4 guardian houses, standing equal with their 3 houses, holding noble status. Victor has always been jealous of the Duke, who enjoys the Emperor's favor and guards the north. He joins in, accusing him of being arrogant and only thinking of himself. Ellie simply says the news may not have reached the distant far north yet, but in her heart, she can't help feeling curious about that mysterious family head. Then she turns her gaze back to the 2 people clinging together before her. She directly asks if they've been seeing each other behind her back. This question strikes like thunder, making them both freeze instantly. Victor asks guiltily if Ellie used her ability to spy on their memories. Ellie slowly removes her gloves. She once vowed to hide this ability forever. She can read others' memories and emotions through touch. Ellie calmly admits she saw their dirty truth. Memories flood back like a tide. She remembers what he said when he proposed. Back then, he said her ability made his skin crawl. Lovers don't need to know all each other's secrets. Holding the ring, he complained gently that this way he couldn't prepare surprises. Smiling, he asked if she could understand. She was moved by the sincerity in his eyes and decided never to use her ability again. Now she finally understands. She's been living in a fantasy of her own making. Victor demands to know why she read his memories without permission, then immediately blames her for overthinking. Ellie sneers inwardly. She knew he'd shirk responsibility like this, but she knows Selena absolutely won't miss this perfect opportunity. Sure enough, Selena immediately stands up and admits they're in love. Victor panics and tries to stop her, but Selena insists on continuing. She even stammers that Ellie's going to die soon anyway. This comment makes Ellie look up in surprise, a wave of sadness washing over her. Victor still wants to make excuses, but Ellie calmly proposes breaking off the engagement. Victor stares at her in disbelief. She says flatly that she's dying soon, so love no longer matters. As she gets up to leave, she says she doesn't care what outsiders think. Looking back one last time, she whispers that she's tired of all this. Victor grits his teeth in fury, his anger with nowhere to go. After shoving decorations to the floor, he turns and storms off. He can't believe someone with a terminal illness dared to dump him first. Selena chases after him, confused why Victor is so angry. She naively thinks this means they can get married smoothly. All Victor can think about is Ellie's indifferent expression. He mutters curses about her ingratitude, his tone dripping with resentment. Then he switches to a smile, gently inviting Selena to go back together. Soon, rumors spread through the Valerian Empire about Alethea's battle with death. Her former fiancé and friend never appear again. Not even a single letter. Fortunately, the killer also shows no sign of activity. She gains time to slowly plan for after her faked death. Just as everything proceeds, according to plan, Emma bursts in frantically. She announces in panic that the Count has returned. Count Ashford, master of this estate and her father. Ellie hurries downstairs, apologizing stiffly for her improper attire. The Count looks at her and simply says she's lost a lot of weight. This comment pierces her heart. He's long since ceased to exist in her life. She can't help but retort, asking when he started caring about her. Her father had always viewed her ability as a curse. After her mother's death, he grew increasingly cold toward her. Though they lived under the same roof, he wouldn't even share meals with her. Year after year, when she reached school age, her father hired a nanny and tutors. He confined her entire life to the estate, and he himself prepared to move away from the estate. Before leaving, he demanded she never leave the estate and never show her true self. That was her last memory of her father. Now she forces herself to stay composed, saying she'll handle the memorial service herself. The Count is about to speak when she interrupts him emotionally. In her agitation, she blurts out that she's died many times already, and he's never protected her even once. The moment the words leave her mouth, they both freeze. The Count asks in disbelief what she means. Ellie suddenly realizes this is the first time her father has come to find her during a loop. Her death loop has taken an unexpected turn. The Count says coldly he'll find another doctor to examine her. He doesn't believe she has any terminal illness. He even says he'll move back into the estate. This sudden concern only makes Ellie want to laugh. Suppressing the sarcasm in her heart, she says flatly he can do as he pleases. Back in her room, she hurriedly packs her belongings. She must escape before the new doctor arrives. If she stays any longer, Benedict's false diagnosis will definitely be exposed, though earlier than planned. She must leave now. Any later, and she might be locked in this gilded cage forever. Before leaving, she takes one last look at the family portrait on the wall. Benedict has already prepared a fast horse, waiting anxiously in the woods. He worriedly reminds her to hold the reins tight and not fall. Ellie mounts the horse smoothly, telling him not to worry, but Benedict asks if she really has no regrets about leaving and never being able to return. After all, this estate holds her entire life. Ellie looks at him seriously, touched by his kindness, but she has absolutely no intention of coming back. She only feels an unprecedented sense of freedom. Benedict respects her decision with tears in his eyes. Ellie says goodbye cheerfully, promising to contact him in a few days. The horse carries her through the night toward the freedom she's craved for so long. The Count picks up the letter she left, his fingers trembling slightly. The letter says she only wants to end her life early. The last line stabs his heart viciously, "Please let me go." And in the family portrait on the wall, her face has been torn to pieces. A week later, House Ashford announces publicly that Alethea has died of illness. The Empire holds a grand funeral for her. The real her appears at the memorial service with a flower basket. Benedict tried hard to stop her, saying she's too easily recognizable, but she must understand what others are doing after her death. This is her best chance to gather clues. Perhaps among the mourning crowd, there's a trace leading to the killer. She observes quietly in the crowd but finds no memories of her at all. Is this really a banquet held to mourn her? How ironic. Suddenly, a young man bumps into her. He apologizes hurriedly. Ellie notices keenly his northern attire. News of her death shouldn't have reached the north. His presence here is highly suspicious. She immediately follows and offers him her flower basket. As he refuses, she touches his hand, then reads his memory. The next second, she releases his hand in shock, and the flower basket crashes to the ground. In the memory, a black-haired man is giving orders to this knight named Aiden. He wants Aiden to investigate none other than Miss Ashford. At this moment, Aiden leaves in a fluster, but Ellie remains trapped in that memory. Just then, terrified screams ring out in the banquet hall. A woman points at the entrance, trembling as she says there's someone covered in blood. Ellie looks ahead. That black-robed figure sends chills through her entire body. When Kalin, guardian of the far north, removes his hood, the entire hall falls silent. The man who wouldn't even attend the Emperor's coronation has appeared at her memorial. Ellie's alarm bells ring loudly. This is definitely not a simple condolence visit. She suddenly remembers the memory she just read. His deep voice seems to echo in her ear. Is Miss Ashford still alive? At the memorial, Kalin casually explains to everyone that the blood on him isn't human. He was just in a rush to get here and didn't have time to change out of his blood-stained clothes. Ellie suddenly recalls an old rumor she heard long ago. People who've seen the Duke of Winterfrost all say he's chillingly terrifying. At this moment, Kalin tilts his head slightly, his gaze seemingly sweeping toward her direction. Ellie trembles all over. Has he discovered her presence? Kalin slowly turns around. His eyes are so cold they could take a life without the slightest hesitation. Kalin walks slowly toward her, each step making her heart race faster. Under his gaze, she freezes like prey being stalked. This suffocating fear is exactly the same as when she first faced the killer. Just then, a hand suddenly grabs her arm. Benedict asks in a low voice how she ended up here. He urgently wants to take her away from this dangerous place. Ellie looks back reluctantly, still wanting to read Kalin's memories while she has the chance. But when she turns around, that dangerous man has already vanished. Afterward, Benedict expresses great surprise. He doesn't understand why the Duke would notice her when they've never met. But Ellie is certain she heard her own name in Aiden's memory. If Kalin has been monitoring her all along, today's encounter is no coincidence. She must find a way to read his memories and unravel this mystery. Just then, that deep voice sounds again. Finally, I meet you. Ellie spins around in panic to find Kalin somehow standing right behind them. Benedict quickly stands and exchanges pleasantries, hiding his inner tension. Kalin responds, while his gaze subtly sweeps across Ellie. He mentions the castle is short-staffed. Ellie keenly senses hidden meaning in his words, as if he's hinting at something. She suddenly realizes that simply avoiding him won't solve the problem. Since she's already decided not to run anymore, she should take the initiative. She gathers her courage and asks to become his maid. To uncover the truth, she must get close to this dangerous man. Kalin asks her name with an amused smile. The instant she answers, he suddenly lifts her veil. He stares straight into her eyes, saying her looks are wasted as a maid. Ellie also examines his handsome yet dangerous face carefully. Kalin reminds her the North has harsh conditions and tells her to think carefully, but she says firmly she's already prepared and doesn't care where she goes. In her heart, she swears that if he's truly the killer, she'll end him with her own hands. Kalin reveals a meaningful smile, saying he'll look forward to her performance. The carriage carries her toward the frozen north. This isolated territory is the only place to gather intelligence on the Duke. Perhaps here, she can completely eliminate this man who threatens her life. She finally stands before the gloomy castle. The cold wind blows through her hair. The head maid leads her into the shared dormitory, helping her adjust to maid life. Looking at the crude bed, she realizes how difficult the coming days will be, and in a place she doesn't know about. Kalin quietly observes her every move. He mutters to himself, surprised by her boldness. He's curious how long this woman who dared come alone can last. The maids avoid Ellie like she's the plague. They pile heaps of clothing into her arms. Then they go off together for lunch, leaving Ellie alone to face the mountain of clothes. This is her 7th day as a maid. Having never washed clothes before, no one is willing to teach her even the most basic steps. She carries the heavy laundry through the snow and ice, bone-piercing cold seeping into her marrow. Even after escaping that gilded cage, she's still trapped in invisible chains. The maid's whispers pierce her heart like needles. Everyone thinks she receives special attention from the Duke, which is why the head maid targets her. Crouching by the frozen lake, she stares at the mountain of laundry, her heart like dead ash. To get close to that dangerous man, she's willing to endure all this humiliation. But a whole week has passed, and she hasn't even seen his shadow. A drop of blood from her nose suddenly falls on the laundry. This has been happening frequently lately. She doesn't know if it's from overusing her ability or if her body has reached its limit. She must read his memories quickly, otherwise all her sacrifices will lose meaning. Just then, a wave of dizzying vertigo strikes. She falls forward uncontrollably. The instant before she plunges into the frozen lake, a strong arm wraps around her waist. Kalin's deep voice sounds in her ear. He says in winter they should use stored water, with a hint of mockery. In her fading consciousness, she can't tell reality from illusion. She only feels this embrace is extraordinarily warm. He whispers she's such a fool, his tone carrying a trace of pity. As he lifts her in his arms, she wants to struggle but has no strength. When she opens her eyes again, she finds herself lying in a warm bed with a roaring fire. A maid named Lillian enters the room. Lillian breathes a sigh of relief seeing her awake. She says everyone who first comes to the north gets sick. She blames herself for not warning her. Only now does Ellie remember collapsing by the lake, feeling a wave of fear. Lillian says she was afraid of losing her job before and didn't dare approach Ellie. Now she sincerely repents for her coldness. But Ellie calmly says her inability to adapt is her own problem, nothing to do with others. Lillian protests emotionally. She says looking after each other is only natural. She adds that looking at Ellie reminds her of her younger siblings, making her want to care for her. This sudden warmth leaves Ellie at a loss. She asks who brought her back. Lillian stammers and looks away. After Lillian leaves, Ellie falls into thought. To think the Duke himself saved her. How did he know where she was? Has he been watching her in secret all along? Suddenly sensing something, she opens the window and indeed sees that familiar figure. Kalin is looking up at her window. The instant their eyes meet, her heartbeat skips. Perhaps this is a perfect opportunity. She takes scissors from the drawer. She's going to read that man's memories. Going downstairs, she finds him waiting, saying he knew she'd come out. He asks with apparent concern if she's adapting well. She forces herself to stay calm, saying it's similar to her previous work, though doubt fills her heart. He suddenly asks about her past experience. She lies, claiming she served the young lady at House Ashford. He asks meaningfully why she chose to come north. She says there are private reasons. A cold smile curves his lips. He says it's quite improper for a maid to hide things from her master. He moves closer, looking down at her, saying she's nothing more than his property. His arrogant tone carries clear warning, as if he could dispose of her at will. She grips the scissors tightly and gathers courage, saying someone is tracking her. She watches his reaction as she speaks, but she can't read any emotion from him. He places his hand on her shoulder, saying she's trembling from cold. Startled, she drops the scissors. The atmosphere suddenly freezes as Kalin clearly heard the sound. In this critical moment, she hurriedly cups his face with her hands. Then Ellie's eyes widen in shock. She can't read any of Kalin's memories at all. This curse that's prevented her from getting close to people since childhood has failed at the most crucial moment. Kalin is also stunned by her bold action. He leans in, wrapping an arm around her waist, his warm breath brushing her ear. He asks softly if she really likes his face that much. Ellie frantically tries to push him away, but finds his grip unmovable. He says she's the first person who dared touch him like this. The feeling isn't bad. Just next time, don't press so hard or his face will hurt. Ellie quickly apologizes, but he only smiles more. So she really wanted to touch him. His tone carries playful amusement. He prepares to leave. Ellie tries to keep him there, but he interrupts her. He tells her, dressed so lightly, not to catch cold outside. They'll have plenty of chances to chat in the future. Ellie can only watch helplessly as he leaves, her heart sinking to the depths. But just then, he bends down and picks up the scissors from the ground. He hands the scissors back to her, reminding her to be careful next time. The instant their fingertips touch, she freezes in terror. He whispers goodnight, his gentle tone somehow chilling. Back in her room, Ellie can't calm down for a long time. Her heart fills with fear and confusion. This is the first time she's touched someone without reading their memories. Unable to read Kalin's memories means she can't confirm whether he's the killer. All her plans are thrown into chaos. She doesn't know what to do. At this moment, Lillian wakes up and asks with concern why she's still awake. Ellie forces composure and tucks in her blanket. Lillian reminds her tomorrow the knight's return and it'll be very busy. This comment awakens Ellie. She remembers that blonde knight. Aiden, whom she saw at the memorial, might provide clues. She grips the scissors tightly, determined to find him tomorrow. The next morning, the castle becomes noisy with the knight's return. Ellie carries a laundry basket around the training ground searching for Aiden. A knight notices her and asks with a smile if she can help wash clothes. Before she can react, he starts removing his shirt. Ellie's face instantly turns red as she stands there, not knowing what to do. More knights join in, peeling off sweat-soaked clothes and tossing them to Ellie. Muscular bodies surround her. She's too embarrassed to know where to look. Several knights crowd around her making advances, their tone both flirtatious and enthusiastic. Just as she stands there helplessly, a familiar voice rings out. Aiden walks over frowning, criticizing them for being indecent in public. A senior knight immediately retorts in dissatisfaction, his tone full of provocation. He mocks Aiden's humble origins, saying he has no right to boss them around. Aiden responds with a cold laugh. He says knights should let their skills do the talking. The other knight gets angry and rushes forward to attack. Fortunately, someone stops him in time. Before leaving, he viciously warns Aiden not to get too cocky. The training ground finally quiets down, leaving only Ellie and Aiden. Aiden bows to her in apology. He feels ashamed about what just happened. He says he'll put his training clothes in a basket outside his room for her to pick up later. Seeing him turn to leave, Ellie quickly grabs the corner of his clothes. She gathers her courage and quietly asks him for a favor. Aiden asks what she needs help with. Ellie frantically searches for an excuse. She stammers that she has too many clothes to carry and asks him to help transport them. Aiden bends down to pick up the laundry basket, telling her to lead the way. She reaches out her hand, claiming she wants to share the weight. The instant her fingertips touch his hand, memories flood in like a tide. In the memory, Aiden stands in the Duke's office reporting military affairs. He mentions the bridge to the northwest needs repairs, but Kalin already anticipated this. The Duke says it happens every year at this time. This surprises Aiden greatly. Then the Duke assigns him a secret mission. He tells him to find the Shadowblade Directive and to visit the ranch to chat with Finn. After reading the memory, Ellie falls into thought. Aiden's reminder brings her back to reality. She forces composure and continues leading the way. At lunch, she ponders alone over the meaning of the Shadowblade Directive. From the conversation's atmosphere, this is definitely not something good. She must investigate thoroughly. At this moment, several maids sarcastically mock her for not finishing her work. They also ridicule her for running after men all day, sneering that she has good taste. She actually picked Aiden. Ellie doesn't want to deal with these boring rumors. This isn't the first time she's been targeted, but Lillian suddenly slams the table and stands up. She directly hits red-haired maid Rosa's sore spot. She exposes how the other was rejected last year and cried in the bathroom at midnight. Then she prepares to say the person's name out loud. Rosa panics, trying to stop her. Lillian demands they stop bullying Ellie. They can only leave in anger. Ellie thanks Lillian, who winks and says it's nothing. Then Lillian notices Ellie only drank soup for lunch. She says with concern that the work is so tiring she should eat more. Lillian suggests using the afternoon break to visit town together. Ellie thinks of a place she wants to go. That afternoon, Lillian enthusiastically accompanies her to a ranch in the outskirts. Ellie awkwardly explains she likes small animals. After reaching the ranch, Lillian calls out Finn's name. Finn rushes over in a fluster to greet them. Lillian introduces the newcomer Ellie to Finn. Finn says he's training a dog the Duke brought back from an aberrant beast's lair. The white dog bares its teeth ferociously, looking more like a wolf. Lillian hands the bread in her hand to Ellie while she prepares to help Finn put a muzzle on the dog. The dog stares at Ellie intently, a dangerous light flashing in its eyes. Ellie also senses something wrong, but she doesn't have time to dodge. The next second, it charges at her in a frenzy. Finn shouts frantically for her to get away, but Ellie has already been knocked to the ground. At this moment, her hand accidentally touches the dog's paw. In this instant, she's shocked to discover her ability actually works on animals too. Just as the dog is about to knock Ellie down, it suddenly whimpers and backs away. Kalin walks over quickly. He takes Ellie's hand and carefully checks her for injuries. Finn rushes to apologize, admitting he failed to control the hound. Kalin coldly reprimands his negligence, his tone showing no mercy. Finn gathers his courage to suggest something. He says this wild-natured dog isn't suitable as a hunting hound. To everyone's shock, Kalin orders without hesitation, then kill it. Everyone is stunned. Finn stammers, trying to explain. But Kalin says a beast with no use is only a menace if kept alive. Ellie's heart clenches, and she quickly speaks up to stop him. Under everyone's surprised gazes, she reveals the truth behind the white dog's frenzy. Her pup is still trapped in the aberrant beast's lair. She just wants to go back and care for her young. Earlier, she lunged at her only because she was holding bread. Images of the white dog protecting her pup surface in her mind. So warm and touching. In this moment, she suddenly thinks of the father who never cared for her. She kneels down and gently cups the white dog's face. She promises to help her. Kalin immediately pulls her back into his arms, scolding her reckless behavior. He says this is simply an untamable wild beast, no different from an aberrant creature. But Ellie firmly says she can't just watch it be killed. She believes that when he brought it back, he wanted to save its life too. Kalin falls silent for a moment, then finally orders Aiden to take men and find the pup. Aiden raises an objection, but is silenced with one sentence. The white dog seems to understand his words and whimpers gratefully at Kalin. Kalin asks if she still remembers where the den is, and she immediately barks in response. Before leaving, he deliberately stops to warn Ellie not to cause trouble. He tells her to wait obediently and not do anything dangerous again. Ellie doesn't understand why he suddenly cares about her. Lillian rushes over, exclaiming how bold she is to dare talk back to the Duke. Finn is already scared to tears, his legs weak. Lillian marvels that the Duke would actually listen to a mere maid. Ellie watches their retreating figures, her heart equally full of questions. At dusk, Kalin orders that the pup must be found before sunset. Aiden can't help but ask the Duke, "Do you really believe what that maid said?" Kalin strokes the white dog, pointing out the signs of birth on her abdomen. He says finding the pup to train as a hound wouldn't be bad, and even if it's dead, the mother will give up hope. As he speaks, his thoughts suddenly drift away. The image of Ellie gently cupping the white dog's face surfaces in his mind. This reminds him that long ago, someone held his face this way too. Back then, he was surrounded by a crowd demanding he protect everyone. They They told him to raise his sword and go to the battlefield immediately. The crowd blocked his view. He could only see the hand hanging by the sickbed. His ears were filled with shouts demanding he protect the Empire. Suddenly, a knight's cry pulls him back to reality. A massive aberrant beast attacks from behind, and he swiftly turns to defend. His wrist is slashed by sharp claws, blood running down his arm. He laughs self-mockingly, saying letting his guard down really isn't like him. Then he smoothly draws his sword and faces the beast with confidence. Kalin efficiently defeats the aberrant beast and wipes the blood from his sword. Aiden says with concern that he's been showing too many openings lately, very different from before. Kalin coldly tells him to shut up, saying he's no different from before. At this moment, a knight rushes over excitedly to report they've found the den where the pup is. The white dog circles the pup tenderly, her eyes full of maternal love. That evening, Ellie is summoned to the Duke's chamber, her heart full of confusion. She pushes open the door and finds the room empty. The spacious office is simpler than she imagined, with very little furniture. Her gaze is drawn to a book on the desk. That book appeared in Aiden's memory. Just as she's about to examine it closely, a drop of water suddenly falls on the cover. Kalin appears silently behind her. Water is still dripping from the tips of his freshly bathed hair. He asks what she was just doing, his tone probing. Ellie hastily covers up, saying she's just surprised by how many books he has. He leisurely sits down on the sofa and calls her over. She approaches anxiously and carefully sits down beside him. Unexpectedly, he rolls up his sleeve, revealing the nasty wound on his arm. He says this is an injury from finding the dog, and naturally she should be responsible for treating it. Ellie has no choice but to carefully clean and bandage it for him. While bandaging, her mind is entirely on that forbidden book. The spine without text and the royal crest both confirm her suspicions. This forbidden book recording the 4 Guardian Houses' abilities was supposed to be kept in the royal vault. Why would it appear in the far north Guardian study? Kalin keenly notices her gaze. He says openly that this is the forbidden book recording the 4 Guardian Houses' legacies. The book records each house's secret abilities unknown to others. But Kalin says the book is missing only the section on House Ashford. He suddenly asks what kind of person Alethea was. Ellie says in a fluster that she's just a maid and doesn't know much about the lady. He insists on hearing it, telling her to just say whatever about her former mistress. She can only describe the melancholic and withdrawn noble lady in others' eyes. She says she was distant from her father, and her relatives only cared about power and gain. When speaking of how she died alone, her voice chokes with emotion. But Kalin suddenly leans closer, asking if this is really her own opinion. What he wants to hear isn't others' assessments, but her true inner thoughts. Under his gaze, she involuntarily speaks what's in her heart. She says that girl, though living in fear, never gave up hope. She always longed to live an ordinary life like a normal person. Only after speaking does she realize she's revealed her true feelings before Kalin. Meanwhile, at the Ashford estate, Emma anxiously knocks on the Count's door. She begs the Count to at least eat something, as he hasn't eaten for days. The butler also tries to persuade from outside, saying the young lady wouldn't want to see him like this. The Count curls up in the corner of the room, burying his face deep in his palms. He painfully murmurs Ellie's name, his only daughter. Just as the butler is at a loss, a mysterious figure quietly appears. The butler announces that a visitor has come, wanting to discuss matters concerning the young lady. At this moment, Kalin softly repeats Ellie's words, his gaze sharp as a blade. He asks whether this is her assessment of Lady Ashford or her own story. Ellie's heart sinks, realizing she let something slip. In this moment, she feels as if she's confessed her true identity before him. But Kalin suddenly changes the subject, saying they shouldn't discuss the deceased anymore. Just as she breathes a sigh of relief, he leans close again, making her hold her breath. Unexpectedly, he just chuckles lightly, saying her bandaging technique is truly terrible. The bandage is wrapped messily, and the ointment is slathered on generously. Ellie quickly gets up to create distance, then asks about the pup's condition. A crisp bark sounds at just the right moment as the brown pup runs happily toward her. She joyfully picks up the chubby little pup, grateful it's still alive. Kalin pretends to be displeased, saying the pup completely ignores him, its savior. Ellie sincerely thanks him, though she doesn't think he went to find the dog specifically for her, but he says seriously that it was indeed because he saw her show anxiety for the first time. Before, she was always so cold, as if emotionless. Now she finally seems like a living person. These words strike Ellie's heart, when she desires to live more than anyone. He suddenly asks how she knew about the pup's existence. She hastily explains that she raised dogs as a child, which is how she knows these details. He smoothly assigns her the task of caring for both dogs, his tone brooking no refusal. She wants to object but ultimately accepts this arrangement obediently. After she leaves, Kalin picks up his wine glass. He chuckles at her performance full of holes. He removes the bandage, the wound on his arm already completely healed. As a descendant of the Far North Guardians, he possesses recovery abilities beyond ordinary people. He murmurs to himself that the desire to live, they're actually the same. The next day, Lillian hears she's in charge of caring for the dogs. She enviously says this is a special promotion. Lillian is curious about the dogs' names. She says the white one is called Snowdrop and the brown one is called Honey. Hearing that the Duke said these are childish names but agreed anyway, Lillian is very surprised. She says the Duke actually made a joke, so it seems he's become quite familiar with Ellie. These words make Ellie ponder. Have she and the Duke really become familiar? Lillian hurriedly says goodbye, saying she needs to go somewhere before work starts. Ellie watches her retreating figure, feeling she's been acting mysteriously lately. However, Lillian's words make her think that the Duke really isn't as cold as the rumors say, but perhaps this is just a carefully crafted facade. Finn's appearance interrupts her thoughts. He heard she's now in charge of caring for the hounds and asks how she feels about it. She says she's still trying to adapt, but isn't quite getting the hang of things yet. After exchanging pleasantries, she directly asks the question that's been on her mind. She asks Finn if he knows what the Shadowblade Directive is. Hearing this term, Finn immediately says it's a medicine for treating livestock. Ellie is secretly alarmed, realizing Aiden had already come asking about it. Finn asks with concern whether the dogs are sick. This confuses Ellie even more, as she always thought it was poison. Why would Kalin be looking for livestock medicine? There must be something hidden here. At this moment, Snowdrop suddenly breaks free from the leash and runs off. Ellie has to say a hasty goodbye and goes to chase Snowdrop while leading Honey. Deep in the woods, she catches up to Snowdrop, but unexpectedly hears Lillian's voice, with a man's. That knight is holding Lillian's hand persistently, his tone frivolous. Ellie wants to quietly leave, but Snowdrop suddenly barks. Lillian turns around in panic, her face full of guilt at being caught. What shocks Ellie even more is that the knight is the one who had a conflict with Aiden. That evening, Lillian desperately begs her to keep it secret, her voice on the verge of tears. Ellie asks if she's been so busy lately because of dates with that man. Lillian nods shyly, saying that although he's rough, he has a good heart. When she hears the name Damien Ravens, Ellie's heart sinks. He was a notorious playboy in the capital with a terrible reputation. She wants to warn Lillian, but swallows her words when she sees her happy expression. Lying down, she tells herself not to meddle, that she shouldn't interfere in others' relationships. But Lillian's gentle goodnight leaves her with mixed emotions. The next day, Damien actually approaches Ellie on his own, his tone flippant. He grabs the laundry basket from her hands, saying he'll help carry the heavy load. He even invites her to go out together, his words suggestive. Ellie dodges him, unable to bear it anymore, finding his womanizing nature revolting. While she's hiding, Kalin appears silently beside her. He asks teasingly if she's switched her target from Aiden to Damien. Ellie hastily denies those ridiculous rumors, but he notices she looks unwell and asks if she wants to rest. She doesn't understand why he cares so much about her. He says matter-of-factly that from his position, how could he not care about her? Under his questioning, she inexplicably voices the troubles in her heart. She worries that giving advice to a friend might damage their relationship. Kalin sees through her concerns at a glance and tells her to do what she thinks is right. He gently strokes her hair. He says if someone dislikes her because of it, he'll banish that person from the far north. Ellie is shocked that he can say such things so casually. He says with a smile that for him, it's just that simple. As long as he's by her side, no one would dare dislike her. That evening, Lillian is going out on another date, her face glowing with happiness. Watching her cheerful figure, Ellie struggles intensely inside. Lillian is the first person in the far north to truly care about her. Ellie doesn't want her to hate her like Selena did, but even less does she want to see her hurt by love's betrayal. She finally makes up her mind and calls out to Lillian. She says firmly that Damien Ravens is scum. Lillian turns back in disbelief, unable to believe Ellie would say such a thing. Ellie urgently lists all of Damien's misdeeds, but Lillian interrupts her, insisting she believes Damien, wants to believe him. Watching Lillian turn and walk away, Ellie's heart fills with regret. In the following days, Lillian deliberately avoids her, evading all contact. When Ellie walks the dogs alone, she always remembers Lillian's trusting eyes. She begins to doubt whether she was too hasty. Perhaps Damien really has changed. Maybe the rumors among nobles aren't reliable, and she believed those gossips too easily. Just as she's about to let the matter go, Rosa runs over in a panic. Rosa pulls her along, saying Lillian jumped from the tower. Everyone gathers around Lillian's bed. The butler is thankful she fell on a haystack and survived, but no one knows when she'll wake up, much less why she jumped from the tower. Ellie leans over the bedside, refusing to believe Lillian would commit suicide. She gently holds Lillian's hand and reads that terrible memory. The images in the memory make her blood run cold. It was him who pushed Lillian from the tower and sneered that corpses don't talk. Rage instantly floods through Ellie. She suddenly stands up and rushes out of the room. At this moment, Kalin also learns the news. He specifically asks if the injured person is Ellie's friend. He immediately decides to go check personally. In the knight's quarters, Damien is boasting proudly about dumping Lillian. He even mocks that Lillian couldn't handle being played by him. Ellie pushes the door open, her eyes cold as ice. She says she knows everything. She repeats word for word what he said when he pushed her. Damien's expression changes instantly as he violently grabs her throat. He says it's a shame, he actually quite liked her, but now he has to silence her. He brutally grabs her hair and drags her toward the cliff. Other knights want to intervene but are scared off by his fierce glare. He laughs twisted, admitting he's exactly the scum she called him. Then he pushes her off the cliff without hesitation, the movement swift and clean. In the moment of falling, Ellie hears their mockery that no one cares about a maid. As the icy lake water engulfs her, despair hurts more than suffocation. humiliation. She doesn't want to go through the long cycle again, doesn't want to start over. Just as she's about to give up, a figure leaps into the water. Kalin swims toward her with effort and cups her face. In the deep water, he kisses her lips without hesitation. Warm breath passes into her mouth, bringing her hope of life. The gate guards watch in shock as the Duke walks over carrying the drenched Ellie. Kalin, dripping wet all over, coldly orders them to open the gate. The guards hastily open the gate and watch as the Duke carries her into the castle. They whisper among themselves behind him, discussing this maid specially favored by the Duke. Ellie wakes up on a soft bed and finds herself in the Duke's bedroom. Her head throbs as she tries to recall what happened last night. Memories flood back. She was dragged into the forest by Damien, then fell into the icy river. The last thing she remembers is the warm sensation of Kalin giving her breath. She didn't expect him to save her again. Kalin's voice suddenly sounds, saying it seems only he values her life. He braces his hands on either side of the bed, trapping her in a small space. He demands to know why she's always getting into danger. Ellie retreats nervously, not understanding why he cares so much about her survival. His gaze doesn't look like concern, but more like reproach for not valuing herself. He grips her face, saying he found several drunk nights by the river. With just one word from her, he can execute those culprits immediately. But Ellie insists she accidentally fell into the river herself. He laughs coldly, saying since reasoning won't work, he'll solve it his way. He orders her to return to her quarters immediately and pack her belongings. Ellie is horrified. If she's driven away, what will happen to Lillian? She hurries after him, begging him to give her more time. At least until Lillian regains consciousness, she's willing to accept any punishment. Kalin reluctantly agrees to give her 1 week. Walking out of the room, he orders the butler to confine the knights involved. The butler tries to dissuade him, mentioning there are noble sons among them, but is ignored. Ellie ponders in the corridor how to punish Damien without implicating Lillian. She must hold him accountable herself, but can't act rashly. Pushing open the dormitory door, she's shocked to find Lillian's bed empty. It's so late, where would she go just after waking up? An ominous premonition flashes through her mind, and Ellie immediately turns to search. Sure enough, she finds Lillian at the top of the tower, standing barefoot at the edge. Ellie calls out her name loudly, her voice trembling in the wind. Lillian turns back in surprise, asking how she found this place. Ellie of course knows this is where Damien first met her. She begs Lillian to come down, saying it's too dangerous there, but Lillian tells her not to come closer, her voice full of despair. In her panic, Lillian slips and is about to fall. Ellie rushes forward with all her strength and pulls her back onto the platform just in time. She demands to know what Lillian is thinking, her voice choking with tears. Lillian says dazedly she just feels so tired she wasn't trying to die. Ellie holds the trembling Lillian tightly, saying she was worried sick. Lillian's tears finally break through, and she apologizes through sobs. She regrets stubbornly not listening to Ellie's warning. Ellie gently wipes away her tears, saying it's not too late. They can still punish the person who hurt her. When Ellie finds Aiden at the training grounds, knights around them cast curious glances. They whisper among themselves, wondering why she's seeking Aiden instead of the Duke. These discussions trouble Ellie, but she remains composed. Aiden thoughtfully suggests talking elsewhere, but she directly refuses. She gets straight to the point. She wants to drive Damien out of the far north and hopes to cooperate with him. Aiden immediately guesses this is revenge for last night's incident, but he's curious why Ellie chose him. Ellie brings up his past as a hostage at the Raven's estate. These words make Aiden's whole body tense. Ellie says the enemy of my enemy is my ally. Flames of revenge burn in Aiden's eyes as he agrees to cooperate without hesitation. He asks what he needs to do, and Ellie tells him to first invite Viscount Ravens to the castle. She says she has Damien's secrets, enough to make the Viscount see the truth. Before parting, she specifically instructs him to keep it from the Duke, and Aiden understands. Late at night, Kalin is disturbed by commotion downstairs, and puts down his book to go down. Viscount Ravens arrives uninvited, insisting on seeing his confined son. Kalin refuses with a cold laugh, saying Damien is reflecting on his actions. The Viscount insists his son is innocent, but is silenced by the Duke with one sentence. Kalin tells Aiden to take the Viscount to the guest room, his tone brooking no argument. When the door opens, the Viscount is surprised to find Ellie waiting inside. She calmly asks him to sit, saying there's much to discuss about his son. The Viscount is dismissive, thinking this is just an ordinary romantic dispute, but Ellie says what seemed like a minor quarrel nearly cost a life. The Viscount still defends his son, saying Damien would never kill anyone. He even offers to forgive Lillian's debts, wanting to settle the matter peacefully. Ellie calmly takes out a land deed and places it on the table. She says this is where the Viscount's eldest son Marcus is buried. The Viscount's eyes widen, in shock, his hands beginning to tremble. Ellie explains in detail how Damien used borrowed money to purchase this land. She says Damien killed his brother without hesitation for power. What devastates the Viscount even more is that Damien isn't even his biological son. This was all a scheme by his mistress to take over the Ravens family. The Viscount can't speak for a long time, but still doesn't want to believe this truth. Ellie suggests he verify it himself, but there's a faster way. Moments later, she knocks on Damien's door carrying a meal. Damien opens the door and sees her, scared out of his wits. The person he thought had drowned now stands before him. Ellie greets him casually, her tone laced with sarcasm. Damien flies into a rage and backs her into a corner. He understands why he's been confined and viciously threatens to kill her. But Ellie suddenly asks why he doesn't bury her in the ground like he did his brother. These words make Damien's face turn deathly pale instantly, his whole body trembling. He asks, trembling, how she could know this secret. At this moment, the Viscount speaks up and interrupts them. His face is ashen, his eyes full of pain and fury. The Viscount questions Damien from above, his voice trembling with rage. Damien still makes excuses, saying his brother clearly died in an accident, until the Viscount asks that fatal question, "Are you even my biological son?" Damien panics instantly. He blurts out, "Did mother tell you?" This sentence completely confirms the truth. The Viscount's heart shatters into 1,000 pieces. He turns to Aiden and says Damien is at the Duke's disposal. "From now on, this bastard is no longer my son, nor part of the Raven's family." He regrets giving the sword to such a person, and letting him become a knight. Damien completely breaks down and wants to chase after him to explain, but Aiden firmly blocks him. Then he tells Ellie to leave this chaotic scene first. Ellie looks coldly at this once arrogant man, satisfaction from revenge rising in her heart. Then she sees the Viscount off. The Viscount thanks her for helping him find his son's whereabouts. He says he'll contact her again after retrieving his son's remains, his tone full of weariness. Ellie stands on the ramparts watching the carriage depart, with mixed emotions. Kalin appears silently behind her, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. He asks if this is what she fought for time to do. He thought she would obediently care for Lillian, not expecting her to cause such a commotion behind his back. He knew about their cooperation from the moment she went to find Aiden. He explains why he tolerated Damien. He can endure for the sake of interests, but Ellie cannot. She says she's already waited too long. Ellie thinks he's going to send her away, and volunteers that she'll leave first thing tomorrow. Unexpectedly, he declares forcefully that from now on she'll be his personal maid. Without his permission, she can't go anywhere. He'll also move her quarters next to his room, so she can be on call at all times. Ellie looks up in shock, unable to believe what she's hearing. He leans down close to Ellie, his voice low and dangerous. He says as long as he's alive, he'll never let her leave his side. A week later, the maids gather together discussing Damien being driven away. Lillian beams with energy as she tells how Ellie got justice for her. When Ellie appears wearing the personal maid's uniform, everyone gathers around her. After becoming the personal maid, her life undergoes a complete transformation. A warm room, elegant uniform, generous salary. What surprises her even more is that the maids aren't jealous but see her as an inspiration. Lillian hands her a letter from the Viscount saying he's found his son's remains. Fortunately, he didn't ask how she knew these secrets. Damien's crimes are made public, and he's stripped of all privileges and banished from the far north. Damien lost his right arm, his knight's dream completely shattered. This incident, unexpectedly, gains Ellie allies in Lillian, Aiden, and the Viscount. The Viscount also promises at the end of the letter to repay her kindness. Becoming the personal maid is her perfect opportunity to get closer to Kalin and gather information. She suddenly coughs, and the maids immediately gather around with concern. Lillian insists she return to her room to rest and volunteers to walk the dogs for her. Lying in bed, Ellie feels confused that after becoming the personal maid she has nothing to do. The only task Kalin gave her is to await his summons at all times. But a week has passed, and he's never called for her. This convinces her he's just using this title to keep her safe in the castle. But why does he care so much about an ordinary maid's safety? Could there be something valuable about her that even she doesn't know? Thinking about this, she gradually falls asleep. The door is gently pushed open, and Kalin quietly walks in. He brushes aside the hair from her forehead, sighing softly that she's running such a high fever yet acting tough. After sitting by the bed, he quietly gazes at her sleeping face. He murmurs the name he shouldn't know, Alethea. He whispers that he simply can't take his eyes off her. A few days later, Ellie is in her room caring for Snowdrop. Someone notifies her that the Duke summons her to the parlor. This is the first time since becoming his personal maid. Ellie pushes open the parlor door with an uneasy heart, then freezes in place. The guest is actually Benedict, whom she hasn't seen in a long time. Kalin explains casually that he specifically invited this physician for her. He says she's always getting sick, and having someone familiar care for her would be reassuring. This unexpected arrangement leaves Ellie at a loss. She leads Benedict away while trying to stay calm, but her thoughts are in chaos. Benedict habitually tries to help carry her luggage but is gently stopped. A terrible thought suddenly flashes. Could he have been sent to monitor her? After all, he was so easily won over by her before, there's no guarantee someone else couldn't persuade him. She demands to see his memory, urgently gripping his hand. Benedict looks at the calluses on her hands with heartache. Fortunately, she finds nothing suspicious. He was simply invited to be a physician, but she still can't help directly questioning Benedict why he came to the far north. Benedict says aggrieved that he's been waiting for her letter, so worried he couldn't eat or sleep. Seeing her safe and sound, he's so happy his eyes grow moist. This sincerity warms Ellie's heart. This is the Benedict she knows. She takes him back to her room for tea and asks about news from the capital. Benedict says the scandal between Victor and Selena is the talk of the entire capital. Everyone speculates her death is connected to those two, and they now don't even dare leave their homes. Ellie listens calmly. She's experienced all this countless times in her cycles. Benedict also says her father was devastated and locked himself in his room. She laughs coldly, thinking it's just putting on a show for others. She interrupts the topic, mentioning her investigation of the Shadowblade directive turned up nothing. Unexpectedly, Benedict's expression changes drastically, his voice trembling. He says it's a deadly poison. The former empress died from this very toxin. He describes the poisoning symptoms in detail, each word making Ellie's heart pound. Burning pain on the tongue, full body paralysis, muscle stiffness, and finally death by asphyxiation. This is exactly the same as what she felt when poisoned in her past life. So she was poisoned to death repeatedly, with the Shadowblade directive each time. And what Kalin is searching for is precisely this poison. Seeing her expression, Benedict blurts out her real name in his urgency. At this moment, the sound of a tray crashing to the floor comes from the doorway. Lillian stands outside the door, her face pale as a sheet. She asks, trembling, why Benedict called Ellie Lady Alethea. Ellie asks Lillian with forced composure how long she's been standing there. She silently prays Lillian didn't hear anything about the Shadowblade directive. She considers using the excuse of a former employer to brush it off. But Benedict blurts out miss once again, completely shattering her plan. Lillian gasps in shock, covering her mouth, her eyes filled with disbelief. Ellie knows she can no longer hide the truth, and can only plead with Lillian to keep this secret. When she admits she's Alethea, Lillian freezes completely. Ellie appears calm on the surface, but her heart pounds so hard it feels ready to burst from her chest. Lillian asks, trembling, whether the Duke knows. After receiving Ellie's negative answer, Lillian grows even more anxious. Ellie prays silently, hoping Lillian can still see her as the same Ellie from before. To her shock, Lillian suddenly drops to her knees, apologizing profusely for her previous offenses. Ellie hurriedly helps her up, saying she's the one at fault for hiding the truth. But the fear in Lillian's eyes breaks her heart. It turns out she was the only one who considered them friends. She moves closer and softly reassures Lillian not to be afraid, that here she's still just Ellie. The question, was I the only one who thought we were friends, ultimately remains unspoken. She shifts to introducing Benedict instead. She mentions he can help treat Lillian's frail younger brother. This is the reward for keeping the secret. She crouches down, almost begging Lillian to treat her as she always has. Lillian nods blankly and softly calls out the name Ellie. Benedict finally breathes a sigh of relief, grateful the crisis is temporarily resolved. But Ellie understands that the more people who know the truth, the more dangerous her situation becomes. She must move faster and uncover Kalin's true identity tonight. When Kalin opens the door and sees her, genuine surprise flashes in his eyes. He warmly invites her in and brings out his prized ice wine, hoping to ease the atmosphere. But Ellie stares at the glass, her mind filled with horrifying memories of the Shadowblade directive. Could this wine also be poisoned? Should she drink it? Finally, she gathers her courage and asks the question that's been haunting her. Kalin's expression freezes instantly, his gaze turning sharp as a blade. He drinks the wine with a cold laugh. He says she's mistaken. He's not looking for the Shadowblade directive, but for the person who needs it. He asks if she thinks he's trying to poison her. The truth is quite the opposite. He wants to prevent death. Ellie presses him about whose death he wants to prevent, but he suddenly falls silent. His hesitant expression hides a secret he cannot speak. Kalin stands to see her out, reminding her that guests will arrive in a few days. Ellie stares at his retreating figure. She doesn't understand where that fleeting vulnerability came from. Meanwhile, Selena rages in her room. She doesn't understand why Ellie's death resulted in her being confined at home instead. Her maid nervously urges patience, but cannot calm her fury. Victor, whom she constantly thinks about, is now drowning in chaos himself. The scandal has left his carefully built business teetering on the edge of collapse. Nobles withdraw their investments one after another, and all his former connections are now unreachable. In desperation, his gaze falls on an exquisite box. Perhaps now, he can only do as that person instructed. Spring finally arrives in the far north. The castle buzzes with unprecedented activity as maids clean every corner. Ellie observes all this quietly, but doubt rises in her heart. What kind of distinguished guest requires such grand preparations? She calls out to Lillian as she passes by. Lillian is visibly startled and laughs awkwardly. This change pains Ellie's heart, yet she can only ask about the guest's identity as if nothing is wrong. Lillian claims to know nothing, assuming it's just ordinary spring cleaning. Just then, the head maid announces that distinguished guests from the capital have arrived. Lillian asks Ellie in surprise how she knew in advance. At that moment, the head maid specifically instructs Ellie to return to her room, saying it's the Duke's order. Other maids excitedly speculate about the guests' identities. Finally, they hear the answer. children of the guardian houses. Ellie's heart sinks sharply as the two people she least wants to see immediately come to mind. When Victor and Selena appear in the hall, her suspicion is confirmed. Kalin greets them with a smile, his manner elegant. Victor appears respectful on the surface, but inwardly thinks this northern duke is arrogant and rude. Ellie hides behind the door, peeking out. She doesn't understand why they're here. Have they discovered her whereabouts and come specifically to find her? Selena praises the northern snow scenery in a sweet voice, requesting the duke take her sightseeing. Victor quickly stops her, his tone carrying barely perceptible tension. Kalin politely declines her request, saying he'll arrange for someone else to accompany her. He reminds them that aberrant beasts roam outside. Selena turns pale with fright. Victor immediately says he'll protect his fiancé. Their intimacy stabs at Ellie's eyes. Kalin suddenly lets out a mocking laugh. He says it seems those scandals were all true. Victor asks back with forced composure, but his clenched fists betray his inner panic. The Duke says meaningfully that they make a perfect match. He suggests moving to the breakfast room, adding that he wants to hear fresh news from the capital. Only then does Ellie realize with alarm that she's hiding in the breakfast room with nowhere to escape. Just as she panics, she hears Victor inquiring about the damaged carriage. She learns that this wasn't their original destination. This confuses her even more. How did Kalin predict their arrival? The sound of the doorknob turning makes her heart stop as Kalin pushes the door open. The moment their eyes meet, time seems to freeze. Kalin quickly blocks her figure with his body. He tells the guests he'll show them their rooms first. Victor says they can dine directly, but he firmly refuses. The maids pick up the luggage without question. Selena tells Kalin with a smile that they'll be right back. The Duke returns a perfect smile. When the guests' figures disappear at the end of the corridor, the smile vanishes from his face instantly. When he turns to face Ellie, his gaze is as cold as northern ice. He demands to know why she never listens. Why she had to be here of all places. Selena complains sweetly about the carriage accident. She criticizes the castle as too shabby for a duke's status. She leans on Victor's shoulder, saying sweetly that she's happy as long as she's with him. Victor asks with a smile if she truly loves him that much. Selena hopes with all her heart that this trip is a prelude to a proposal. She fantasizes about a romantic world for just the two of them. Just then, Victor keenly notices something wrong. Kalin is concealing something at the breakfast room doorway. He narrows his eyes and discovers a glimpse of silvery white hair. It looks exactly like someone from his memory. Ellie? The thought sends a shock through his body, and he can't believe his eyes. At this moment, Kalin looks down and demands to know why Ellie disobeyed orders and appeared here. Ellie asks back without backing down. How did you predict the carriage would break down in the north? Kalin says coldly that it's none of her business, his tone carrying suppressed fury. He asks sarcastically if she's very interested in the guests, whether she wants him to introduce them, but Ellie cuts straight to the truth, pointing out he's saying one thing and meaning another. He was just frantically hiding her moments ago. Kalin's voice suddenly carries pain he can barely conceal. He says whenever she acts this willfully, he doesn't know what to do. Ellie freezes, seeing that wounded expression on his face once again. The butler's appearance interrupts this confrontation, saying there's an urgent matter to report. Kalin orders Aiden to escort Ellie back, and to monitor her every move at all times. Ellie can't believe he's monitoring her so blatantly, but can only compromise. After Kalin leaves, Aiden curiously asks if they're in a relationship. Ellie denies it vehemently. He's somewhat surprised, because he often sees the Duke secretly watching her. Finally, he asks her to cooperate, or he'll be punished again. Ellie can only agree guiltily. At the dining table, Selena exaggerates her praise of the abundant food. Kalin mocks faintly, saying otherwise they'd be ridiculed for eating cheap food. Victor suddenly asks about the silver-haired maid in the breakfast room, his tone meaningful. Kalin says calmly she's just an ordinary maid, telling him not to mind her, but Victor says with a smile that she reminds him of someone he misses. He brings up Alethia's name, and pretends to say affectionately that he once loved her. Kalin exposes his hypocrisy with a cold laugh, saying the rumors from the capital aren't baseless. Victor maintains forced composure, and asks back why Kalin attended the memorial service. He sharply asks what relationship the Duke had with his late fiancé. Kalin sets down his wine glass, his voice cold as northern ice. He says Victor shouldn't insult two fiancés simultaneously. Selena glares at Victor, hurt and angry, and the atmosphere at the table freezes instantly. Victor frantically tries to explain but is angrily interrupted by Selena. Kalin drinks quietly, bitter ripples stirring in his heart. He recalls Victor asking about his relationship with Ellie, and a self-mocking smile curves his lips. To her, he's perhaps just a stranger, but to him, she's the entire meaning of his life. That's why he so desperately wants to keep her by his side, praying she'll never leave him. Back in her room, Selena can no longer suppress her rage. She demands to know why Victor still thinks about that dead woman. Victor says carelessly that Ellie was important to him. Selena trembles with anger, reminding him that she's the one by his side now. But Victor suddenly falls silent for a moment. He says she doesn't understand Ellie's weight in his heart. He even accuses her of lacking compassion, since Ellie was once her friend too. Selena angrily slams a pillow into his face. She turns and storms out, slamming the door. Victor doesn't chase after her. Instead, he collapses on the sofa, complaining about her willfulness. He can't help comparing their personalities, missing Ellie's gentle thoughtfulness even more. Then he suddenly remembers the silver-haired maid. His instinct tells him things aren't so simple. He decides to personally confirm the identity of that figure he can't stop thinking about. Meanwhile, Ellie is confined to her room, staring awkwardly at Honey. Lillian returns early, and they greet each other somewhat awkwardly. Lillian says the guests had a big fight during dinner over rumors from the capital. She notices Aiden standing guard outside the door. Ellie has no choice but to admit she's being monitored. Lillian immediately becomes anxious. She sits beside Ellie in panic, whispering to ask if her identity has been exposed. Ellie quickly holds her hand reassuringly, saying this has nothing to do with her. Lillian had kept her promise, and there were no traces of leaks in Benedict's memories either. But all this makes the truth even clearer. Kalin had known the truth from the very beginning. Bringing Benedict here wasn't a coincidence. Hiding her from the guests was further proof. But they'd never met. How could he recognize her when she'd never left the estate? And why is he so concerned about her life and death, even searching for the source of the Shadowblade directive? All of this suggests knowledge of her death loop. A shocking theory forms in her mind. Could he also be trapped in the curse? Just then, heated arguing suddenly erupts outside the door. Victor ignores Aiden's attempts to stop him, insisting on seeing the silver-haired maid. When Aiden accidentally says, "Miss Ellie," his suspicion is confirmed, and he becomes instantly excited. He pounds frantically on the door, shouting Alethea's full name. Inside the room, Ellie trembles all over with fear. Victor shoves Aiden aside, his hand already on the doorknob. The door is violently pushed open by Victor. However, when he sees the scene inside, he freezes in shock. Before Victor pushed the door open, seeing Ellie so frightened, Lillian decides to help her. She drapes a bedsheet over Ellie and hides her in the wardrobe. When the door opens, only Lillian stands in her nightgown in front of the wardrobe. She curtsies to the Count with feigned composure, then calmly admits she's Ellie, her tone steady and calm. Hidden in the wardrobe, Ellie holds her breath, her heart pounding like war drums. Victor persists, asking if there are other maids. He insists on finding that silver-haired figure. Lillian suggests the dim lighting caused him to see things, trying to dispel his doubts. This angers Victor. He hates when people question his judgment. In the darkness, Ellie bites her lip, regretting her carelessness this morning. Then Victor keenly notices the two beds in the room. He approaches step by step, placing his hand against the wardrobe door. He looms over Lillian menacingly. At the critical moment when the truth is about to be exposed, Snowdrop suddenly barks wildly. The untamed hunting dog bares its fangs. Victor retreats in fright. He falls awkwardly to the ground. He can't believe Northerners keep wild beasts in their rooms. Maids who heard the commotion peer in curiously. This makes Victor even more embarrassed. Flushed with embarrassment and anger, he straightens his clothes. He flees hastily under everyone's gaze. Walking down the corridor, he keeps telling himself it couldn't possibly be Ellie. How could she leave him? And how could she be content staying in such a place? In a daze, he seems to see silver hair flash by again. But when he looks closely, it's a brown-haired maid. He shakes his head self-mockingly, convinced he's obsessed to the point of delusion. Inside the room, Ellie emerges from the wardrobe wrapped in the bedsheet, pale as paper. She sincerely thanks Lillian and Aiden, her voice still trembling. Aiden tactfully doesn't ask questions, only saying anyone would want to avoid such a person. Ellie falls into thought. Victor clearly didn't come specifically to find her. Kalin's precise prediction of the carriage breakdown means this has happened multiple times. This must be an event that inevitably occurs after her death. What secret does that unfamiliar necklace around Victor's neck hide? She desperately wants to read his memories but has no opportunity to get close. Lillian embraces her with concern, only then discovering she's already broken out in a cold sweat from fear. Seeing Ellie's vulnerable state, infinite compassion wells up in Lillian's heart. Whatever the circumstances, she wants to continue being Ellie's friend. She grips Ellie's arm tightly and breaks into a warm smile. This smile shines into Ellie's heart like sunlight, moving her deeply. Aiden urges them to rest. However, no one notices a figure quietly departing outside the door. Selena clamps her hand over her mouth, unable to believe what she's seen. She could never mistake that face. Alethea is actually alive. The castle is silent in the deep of night as Ellie gently pushes open her door. Aiden stands guard outside, asking in surprise why she hasn't rested yet. Ellie says she has a terrible headache and wants to take a walk. Aiden looks troubled, saying it's too late and hoping she'll stay in her room. She promises repeatedly she won't cause trouble and won't approach the guest quarters. Finally, Aiden compromises but insists on accompanying her. Moonlight spills across the courtyard as they stroll quietly. Aiden asks with concern if she's cold. Ellie shakes her head, saying after being in the north so long, she's grown accustomed to the cold. But Aiden says she's always getting sick. Ellie smiles bitterly and changes the subject, asking why the castle previously had no resident physician. Aiden says Northerners are robust. Even children can play in harsh winter. He mentions the Duke never gets injured and doesn't need medical care at all. Ellie immediately recalls when Kalin injured his arm while searching for the dogs. Aiden can only explain that the heir of House Winterfrost possesses an immortal body. Ellie is surprised he reveals this secret so easily, but Aiden says she's now part of their family too. These words make Ellie's heart tremble, and she can't help but lower her head. Aiden seizes the opportunity to advise her to act cautiously and not betray the Duke's intentions. He says she's always too impulsive, which surprises him. Ellie grips her arms, unspeakable bitterness welling up inside. She can no longer endure fate's cruel tricks. That sense of helplessness terrifies her more than death. It forces her to keep moving forward. Aiden reminds her it's time to go back, but she insists on walking a bit longer. Before they know it, they arrive at the stables. Aiden looks around curiously, not understanding why she'd come to such a place. Ellie says although she often visits Finn, she's never looked closely at these horses. She requests to observe them closely, and after a moment's hesitation, Aiden agrees. Victor and Selena traveled unusually discreetly this time, not even bringing maids, but Ellie knows it's not only people who possess memories. Aiden admires the guests' fine horse breed, rarely seen in the north, but Ellie finds it strange. When did these two acquire a new white horse? She gently strokes the horse's face and instantly reads its memories. In the vision, the carriage driver assures a figure in a black robe he'll damage the wheel at the designated location. Victor excitedly examines the carriage, praising it as exquisite as a work of art. He's immensely grateful, saying he doesn't know how to repay such kindness. The shadow envoy smiles and produces a box, saying he has another gift for him. Inside the box is that necklace gleaming with an eerie light. Suddenly, a sharp shout interrupts her reading. The stable hand enters carrying a lantern, demanding their identities warily. Ellie hastily covers her face, her heart racing wildly. Aiden hurries forward to explain, trying to defuse the crisis. But Ellie pulls him back, her voice unusually firm. She must see the Duke of Winterfrost immediately. Not a moment can be wasted. The lantern in the stables is suddenly knocked over, and fierce arguing erupts in the darkness. Glenn grabs Aiden's collar tightly, demanding sharply what he's done to the horses. Aiden calmly demands he let go while asking what his true identity is. Ellie whispers a reminder that this is Victor's stable hand. Aiden is shocked by his incredible strength. No ordinary stable hand should possess this. Ellie reminds him again to be careful. This person seems highly unusual. Aiden's hand quietly moves to his sword hilt, his gaze becoming sharp as a hawk's. Meanwhile, in the bedroom, Kalin is tossing and turning, unable to sleep. He's replaying every word he said to Ellie during the day. Those heartfelt words that slipped out make him cover his eyes in frustration. How could he say such direct things? He's like a lovesick youth. A sudden knock interrupts his thoughts. He opens the door to find Selena standing outside. He says coldly that visiting so late is quite rude, and to say whatever she needs to say quickly. Selena stammers in the room, finally asking that question with trembling voice. She asks why Lethea is still alive. Kalin is greatly alarmed, not expecting the truth to actually be exposed. She murmurs to herself, "They held a funeral, the coffin was buried underground." She doesn't understand why Ellie can smile so calmly, as if nothing ever happened, as if she never experienced death. She suspects all this is some test or prank Ellie designed. Kalin lets out a chilling cold laugh, saying she doesn't seem at all happy her friend is alive. He says sarcastically they grew up together and should have deep feelings. He once sympathized with them for losing their close friend. Now he realizes it wasn't worth it at all. He walks behind Selena and says in a low voice, "You wanted Ellie to die, because only with Ellie dead could you become engaged to Victor." Selena trembles all over in fright, finally promising to keep the secret. She says she'll treat it as seeing a ghost, because Alethea is dead. Kalin smiles with satisfaction, glad she's sensible enough. After seeing Selena off, just as he's about to rest, the door is knocked on again. Ellie stands outside, her skirt stained with glaring bloodstains. Kalin's breathing stops instantly. That rainy night flashes through his mind. The image of her collapsed in a pool of blood pierces his rationality like a blade. He can't hear her explanation at all, yanking her in front of him. He demands harshly what she's done now, his tone carrying uncontrolled fury. Without waiting for her answer, he roughly drags her outside. No matter how she pleads and explains, he turns a deaf ear. He throws her to the guards, ordering them to lock her in the cold iron cell. He says as long as she's alive, that's enough. They can bind her hands and feet if necessary. In the cold cell, Ellie desperately pounds on the iron bars. She says she's uncovered Victor's true purpose for coming north. But Kalin only says coldly, "Selena saw you." These words make Ellie freeze instantly in place. Kalin leaves without looking back, telling her to stay here obediently. The guards whisper among themselves, mocking her wild fantasies. They say even if Victor really brought a dark sorcerer, so what? Bound hand and foot, Ellie listens to their mockery in despair. The Shadow Envoy's words from Glenn's memory surface in her mind. He said Winterfrost's way of ruling is outdated. The Empire needs new power, needs new heroes. The North faces immense danger, yet she can't warn anyone. She considers who could help. Lillian won't discover she's missing until daybreak. Benedict just arrived at the castle and has no idea where she is. She fears tonight is the end and that she'll never see Kalin again. Meanwhile, in the guest room, Victor looks at Selena in disbelief. She suddenly demands to return to the capital immediately, not waiting a moment. Victor suppresses for a reason, and she can only use missing her brother as an excuse. This reason leaves him speechless. He says the carriage is broken. They can't leave now. Selena throws a tantrum, insisting she must leave no matter what. Victor watches her hysterical state, his heart full of disdain. But thinking Alethea is gone, he can only compromise. He promises to leave first thing tomorrow morning, and only then does Selena stop crying. He puts on his coat and prepares to go out, with Selena following warily. The snow plains before dawn are exceptionally cold as they walk one after another. Victor stops at a high point and takes out the necklace from around his neck. Selena asks curiously what it is, and he shows it proudly. He says this isn't a necklace but a horn that can change fate. The Shadow Envoy's voice from the memory echoes again. He said this horn is made from the horn of Frostfang, the colossal king of beasts. Blowing it will make aberrant beasts submit, granting power to command them. The Shadow Envoy said Victor is destined to become the Empire's new hero. Though Victor feels uncertain, he decides to take the gamble. He wants to use this horn to control aberrant beasts and forge a new enterprise. He longs to see that arrogant Duke kneel and beg for mercy. Selena watches his crazed expression, unease stirring within her. Victor brings the horn to his lips and takes a deep breath. An eerie, distant sound echoes through the valley before dawn. The thunderous sound of aberrant beasts running comes from the mountain forests. Victor vows in his heart to make Kalin pay the price. Benedict finishes bandaging Aiden's wound and carefully reports the situation to the Duke. Kalin tells him to leave first. After closing the door, Benedict finally breathes a sigh of relief, though his heart still races. He always feels he trembles, involuntarily, when standing before the Duke, a strange sensation. Thinking of Aiden's serious injuries, he can't help worrying what major event has occurred in the castle. In the room, Kalin approaches Aiden, disappointment in his voice. He says he never expected Aiden would disappoint him, and these words make Aiden lower his head in shame. Under Kalin's questioning, Aiden recounts what happened last night. While accompanying Ellie on a walk to the stables, a fierce man suddenly appeared. From his combat skills, the man seemed more like a well-trained elite soldier. Aiden intended to capture him alive for questioning, but was cut on the arm while subduing him. When he demanded the man's identity, the man shouted about the Empire's glory and then killed himself. Aiden apologizes for his carelessness. Then Aiden suddenly remembers Ellie and asks about her whereabouts. Kalin says coldly he locked her in the underground prison. Outside the door, Benedict is shocked. Aiden hastily explains Ellie is innocent. They should be wary of Victor and Selena. But Kalin pours wine absent-mindedly, not even noticing when the glass overflows. He murmurs that he should have locked Ellie up long ago. Aiden senses something is very wrong with him. He's completely different from his usual self. Suddenly, Kalin looks up alertly, asking Aiden if he hears something. Just then, knights burst in frantically, reporting news of an aberrant beast invasion. Downstairs immediately descends into chaos as the head maid busies herself evacuating people and maintaining order. Lillian searches for Ellie in the crowd while holding Honey, but can't find her anywhere. Honey suddenly barks anxiously, making her even more panicked. Then Benedict runs up breathlessly, bringing news about Ellie. Kalin leads the knights to the top of the tower to observe the aberrant beast's movements. The knights discuss tactics in a cacophony of voices, but he remains silent throughout. When someone urges him to give orders quickly, new information arrives. The aberrant beasts are gathering toward the West Wing Tower. That's exactly where Ellie is imprisoned. Kalin's expression changes dramatically in an instant, and he turns to leave. He hands command to Aiden, determined to rescue Ellie no matter what. Someone tries to stop him, but Aiden prevents them. Aiden understands the Duke can't hear anything right now. Kalin runs desperately across the grass with only one thought in his mind. He must reach Ellie as quickly as possible and can't let her face danger again. Kalin rushes through the morning light. Ellie's words echo relentlessly in his mind. She said she only wanted an ordinary life. Those words carve into his heart like a blade. That night, he had secretly vowed to make this simple wish come true for her, as long as she stayed by his side and let him protect her. But when he reaches the West Wing Tower, the scene before him turns his blood to ice. The tower has already crumbled into ruins, leaving only broken walls wailing in the wind. Knights frantically try to stop him from approaching, warning that it could collapse again at any moment. But he walks toward the rubble as if he hasn't heard them. Step by step, Kalin kneels before the debris, tormented by guilt for imprisoning her here. His hands frantically dig through the stones, letting the sharp edges tear his palms. The knights rush forward in alarm, trying to restrain him. He doesn't understand. This time, he had kept her close to protect her. Why does fate still insist on tearing her away from him? Just as despair consumes him, a familiar voice calls his name. He spins around and sees Ellie and Lillian standing unharmed in the distance. Ellie rushes forward, panicking at the sight of his bloodied hands, but Kalin leans close and softly calls her full name. He says he can no longer bear the pain of losing her. Before he finishes speaking, he collapses onto her shoulder. When he opens his eyes again, he finds himself surrounded by endless darkness. He struggles to his feet, his only thought to find Ellie. Suddenly, a strand of silver hair flashes through the darkness. Ellie stands there. He rushes forward in wild joy, only to see her face covered in blood, a horrifying sight. He jolts awake to find himself lying in a familiar bed. Ellie sits quietly beside him, Seeing him wake, she moves to fetch a doctor. He grabs her hand tightly, asking if she's hurt. Ellie turns away, saying she's fine, but he clearly senses something is wrong, his unease growing stronger. Finally, Ellie turns around, her eyes filled with the pain of betrayal. She demands to know why, if he knew her true identity. He kept pretending he didn't. He starts to explain, but she cuts him off. She asks if he finds it amusing to toy with her like this. Cold and cruel one moment, gentle and kind the next. She says if this is just a game to him, he should just let her die. Before she finishes, tears slide down her cheeks. In this moment, Kalin can no longer control his emotions. He throws himself forward, falling to his knees and burying his face in her arms. His voice breaks as he says he never wanted her to die. If she dies, everything resets, repeating endlessly in an infinite loop. They're both trapped in this endless cycle, equally desperate. Kalin begins to tell the story of how he was imprisoned by the time loop. That day, he was working as usual. His gaze was suddenly drawn to a freshly brewed cup of tea on his desk. He felt a strange sense of déjà vu and asked the butler about the tea's origin. The butler said it was a gift from Viscount Ravens. He took a sip, and the inexplicable familiarity made him decide to order more in the future. As he continued reviewing documents, he felt he had already reviewed them before. He thought it was just an illusion from living too many similar days, until the same tea appeared on his desk again. Only then did he realize in horror that he was trapped in a nightmare from which he couldn't wake. The daily repetition quickly shattered his sanity. As the guardian of the far north, he had to constantly battle aberrant beasts. But in the endless loop, this honor became the heaviest shackle. He gradually grew numb, often staring blankly at his own hands. His heart became so hollow it could no longer stir, as if only an empty shell remained, until he discovered a unique variable, Alethea. That day, the butler came to report her death, saying she had fallen at her wedding. A few months later, a knight came with news of her death again. This time, she was poisoned. Sometime later, Lillian brought word that she had perished in flames. He realized that in each loop, she died in a different way. From then on, he began closely monitoring news from the capital. Each time the loop reset, he sank deeper into anguish. He finally discovered the pattern. 72 days after her death, everything would restart. Kalin's voice breaks as he says those days were especially unbearable. He had blamed her incompetence and cursed his own powerlessness. Back then, she was nothing more than someone destined to vanish. But in this loop, he heard she had taken her own life. This surprised him greatly, and he decided to attend the memorial himself. Strangely, though he had never met her, he recognized her instantly. In that moment, he had only one thought: he must keep her alive. However, she proved harder to control than he imagined. Despite dying so many times, she still risked herself for others. He couldn't understand her actions and felt only frustration and anger at first. But watching her selflessness made him ashamed of his own selfishness. Without realizing it, his gaze could no longer leave her. At some point, he stopped seeing her as merely a tool to escape the loop. The feeling of not wanting to lose her became so real. That special emotion reserved for someone precious left him at a loss. After hearing Kalin's confession, Ellie falls into a long silence. She never imagined someone else was caught in her loop. Finally, she quietly explains she had always thought he was the killer, that shadowy assassin who brought her death time and again. This time, she was determined to strike first and end the hunt. Kalin asks in shock if she had always mistaken him for that person. He tries eagerly to explain he had been secretly protecting her all along, but he quickly calms down, understanding she still has doubts. He resolves to prove himself through actions. He pulls out a dagger and firmly places it in her hands. He says if killing him will remove her doubts, he's willing. Ellie asks in shock what if he truly dies. He says softly that at least it would prove his innocence. She asks trembling if time doesn't loop again, he would be gone forever. He strokes her face, saying he would thank her for ending his weary existence. After his final confirmation, she swings the dagger. Blood drips onto the carpet, but she says he's lying because he saved her time and again. The blade had been pointed at herself, and he caught it with his bare hand. Kalin throws the knife aside, demanding why she would hurt herself. Ellie says only this way could she confirm he had been protecting her all along. She declares firmly, from now on, she will never doubt his sincerity again. Kalin sinks onto the bed, terrified by her reckless act. Ellie thanks him for revealing the truth. She gently cradles his healing hand, finally confessing her ability to read others' memories. Yet she alone cannot read his, only piecing together fragments from others. This led to her misunderstanding of him. Now she understands his feelings and hopes he trusts her words. Meanwhile, in a distant grand palace, a secret meeting unfolds. A richly dressed man tells the other to relax. Kneeling before him is none other than Damien. His empty sleeve is painfully conspicuous. When asked about his severed arm, he spits out Ellie's name viciously. He says it's because of that maid that he lost everything. The man finds it suspicious. How could a mere maid know so many secrets? Damien insists she simply manipulated servants from his household. The man carefully asks about Ellie's appearance. When he hears silver hair and violet eyes, a strange gleam flashes in his gaze. He promises to help Damien get revenge and reclaim what he lost. Damien weeps with gratitude, swearing loyalty to His Majesty Valdemar. His Majesty summons the Shadow Envoy and orders an assistant arranged for Damien. He also orders a letter sent to Count Ashford. On a stormy night, Count Ashford receives the letter. It contains only a single line. I have found your daughter. The Count's eyes widen as he trembles, ordering pen and paper. Victor is roughly escorted by the knights. He struggles violently, demanding they release him. Kalin appears before him, his cold mockery silencing Victor instantly. When he sees Selena also captured, his face turns deathly pale. Kalin says they found Selena at the crossroads during the beast attack. He demands if Victor abandoned his fiancée to save himself. Victor frantically claims he went for help, his voice trembling with guilt. But Selena, tears streaming down her face, exposes his lies. She says he violently shook off her hand and fled. She trembles as she describes the terror of being left alone in the forest. Her voice breaks as she demands if he knows how terrified she was. Victor weakly continues making excuses, saying he had no choice. Kalin grabs his collar and lifts him off the ground. Kalin stares him down, demanding if all of this is his doing. He says if Victor doesn't answer honestly, he won't leave the far north alive. Victor kneels and swears it was a mistake, that he thought the horn was just an ordinary defensive tool. Kalin doesn't believe his lies, his gaze cold as ice. Someone reports that the carriage is ready. He says for the sake of the guardian houses he'll let him go this time. But Victor must leave the far north immediately, and this matter isn't over. Victor trembles on his knees before the knights finally drag him away. After everyone withdraws, Ellie walks in from outside. Kalin hands her the horn, relieved they secured the evidence. Ellie examines the legendary artifact, unable to believe it actually exists. But Kalin says it's just an ordinary goat bone under a curse. Frostfang the Colossal is merely a legend. It doesn't exist in this world. Whoever gave Victor the horn clearly wanted to test its power. Ellie regrets not questioning who's behind it. But Kalin says there's no need to tip them off. She doesn't understand why Victor would rather kneel than name his accomplices. There must be more to this. Perhaps they can trace the magical item's energy signature back to its owner. Kalin watches her quietly. He suddenly notices the marks on her wrists. He softly apologizes for restraining her before. Ellie says as long as no one was hurt, he shouldn't worry about it. But he insists that's not enough. All of this stemmed from his distrust. He moves closer, sincerely asking for her forgiveness. Ellie doesn't know how to respond, as no one has ever asked for her forgiveness before. Neither her betraying fiancé nor her abandoning father ever did. She instinctively tries to take the blame, but he gently interrupts. He wants to hear her true feelings, and he'll accept whatever answer she gives. After a moment of silence, Ellie softly says she's willing to forgive him, because she doesn't want to resent him. These words leave Kalin frozen. He smiles slightly, saying she forgave him too easily. He thanks her sincerely. His hand quietly tightens around a ring. Kalin gently asks about her plans for the future, saying she can now live peacefully in the far north. But Ellie believes she has no reason to stay here anymore. Since she's confirmed he's not the killer, she should resume her search for the real one. Just as she resolves to say goodbye, Kalin sees through her intentions. He gently takes her hand and slips a ring onto her finger. Ellie looks down in shock. Seeing the light glinting on her finger, her heartbeat quickens. He earnestly begs her not to leave. He can't bear her facing a dangerous world alone. He'll create a new identity for her, giving her more than she ever had. Finally, he solemnly asks her to become his fiancée. This way, he can protect her forever and keep her from harm. Lillian and Benedict react very differently to the news. Lillian excitedly says she always knew the Duke was especially gentle with her, but Benedict worries there's an ulterior motive. Lillian angrily defends the Duke, saying he's not a calculating person. Ellie gently touches the ring, understanding this is merely a contract marriage. Kalin said the title of lovers is the most convincing cover. Though she agrees with the reasoning, she worries it will become a future complication. She points out her maid status makes her unworthy of him and will surely draw opposition. But Kalin smiles, saying in the far north, no one can interfere with his decisions. His warm palm envelops her hand, saying he'll create a new identity for her. But Ellie understands that without a legitimate status, she'll be trapped in this castle forever, just like being imprisoned in the Ashford estate before, losing her freedom. Seeing her lost in thought, Benedict tactfully changes the subject. He mentions Aiden's condition. Ellie says she must thank him in person. Lillian quickly says she'll come along too. Benedict teases Lillian about having feelings for Aiden, making her blush furiously. Watching her friends bicker, Ellie feels warmth instead. The castle has quickly returned to its former peace, with damage far less than expected. This is all thanks to Aiden's excellent command, and an unexpected hero. Honey bounds over happily, and Ellie gently lifts it onto her lap. Lillian worries about the fate of the two dogs. Ellie says the Duke hasn't made a decision yet. Actually, the one who saved her that day was none other than Honey, who suddenly grew massive. Its enormous body brought down the tower, and frightened away all the aberrant beasts. Fortunately, it has returned to its normal size. But the fact that aberrant beast blood flows in its veins is undeniable. Kalin allowing them to stay in the castle perhaps means he's accepted this special existence. Just then, the butler delivers a letter from the Ashford estate. After reading it, Benedict's expression changes dramatically. He hands the letter to Ellie, saying she should read it herself. The letter contains only a few brief lines, but they chill Ellie to the bone. It reads, Alethea has returned home. You should come back too. Morning sunlight streams through the window lattice. lattice. Kalin casually opens a letter from the imperial palace. The emperor commends his attendance at the memorial but reproaches him for not visiting the palace. The pompous lectures make him sneer, and he casually tosses the letter into the fire. The butler worries about whether to respond, but he says it's a pure waste of time. Listening to reports on reconstruction, his thoughts have already drifted elsewhere. When the two special dogs are mentioned, he says indifferently to leave them be for now. The butler's concern is cut off, and he can only continue with other matters. Kalin rests his head on his hand, his thoughts entirely consumed by the silver-haired girl. Half a month has passed without an answer from her, leaving him restless. Was he too hasty, putting too much pressure on her? Or did Victor hurt her too deeply, making her afraid to trust again? But remembering her gentle gaze that night, he thinks perhaps things aren't so bad. Should I send her flowers? He accidentally says aloud. The butler's surprised stare makes him awkwardly look away, and he pretends to focus on the reports. Meanwhile, in Benedict's room, Ellie blames herself for the injury on Aiden's face. She bows her head deeply, her voice breaking as she apologizes to everyone. She says she's been so focused on escaping fate that she's dragged down those who care about her. From now on, she'll be more mindful of her words and actions. Aiden smiles gently, telling her not to blame herself so much. Both Lillian and Benedict feel relieved. This warm scene is interrupted by maids bursting in. They excitedly pull Ellie back to her room. Returning to her room, Ellie is stunned by the sight before her. Flowers and gifts fill the room, with the two dogs lying obediently among them. The maids discuss enviously, saying this must be the Duke's doing. Someone teasingly asks if she's becoming the Duke's mistress. Lillian tries to protest, but Ellie quickly covers her mouth, looking at these expensive gifts. Ellie understands Kalin is showing her the future life he offers. She can't delay any longer. She must give him an answer tonight. As night deepens, Kalin stands by the window. She arrives at his room wrapped in a shawl. He hurries to meet her, nervously asking if she liked the gifts. Seeing her silent with lowered head, his smile gradually freezes. He carefully takes her hands. His voice trembles as he asks for her final decision. Ellie finally looks up, saying what she truly desires is freedom from the time loop. Before finding the real killer, she can't enjoy all of this in peace. Kalin tries to persuade her, but she firmly interrupts. She grips his hands and makes a shocking request. She's willing to accept his proposal, but wants him to leave with her. Wherever they go, she'll stay by his side as his fiancé. She only asks that he protect her forever, just as he does now. Kalin grabs her arms in disbelief, asking why she suddenly wants to return to the capital. Ellie tells him about the mysterious letter. Someone is impersonating her. He urgently urges her to abandon that identity forever and live peacefully in the far north. But Ellie shakes her head firmly, her voice carrying unshakable resolve. She says she must reclaim her abandoned name and fight the killer to the end. Running away will never change fate. She refuses to live in shadows anymore. She looks up earnestly, inviting him to join her, hope gleaming in her eyes. But Kalin stands frozen, hearing the voices of countless people. Those voices demanding he protect the far north bind him like chains. The hand hanging from the sickbed is a nightmare he can never escape. Finally, he says with difficulty that he has a path he must follow. As Duke of House Winterfrost, his life was decided long ago. Ellie understands his choice, her heart aching though she feigns calm. She says even alone, she must leave to seek the truth. Ellie slowly removes the ring from her finger, her fingertips trembling slightly. She says bitterly that his soul has long been imprisoned by the far north. Then Ellie returns the ring to his hand. Her final farewell is soft as a sigh, yet strikes his heart like a hammer. When he comes to his senses, he sees only the closed door. He clutches the ring, his knuckles white from the pressure. The next day, Ellie begins packing her belongings. Lillian and Benedict appear at her door with luggage, saying they'll accompany her. Lillian forces a smile, saying she'll buy a new dress when they reach the capital. Snowdrop and Honey come to the door, reluctantly saying goodbye. She kneels down, apologizing deeply for not being able to take them along. Ellie gently cradles Snowdrop's face, touching foreheads and promising to meet again. Walking through the silent castle, even the wind sounds unusually clear. Looking at the scenery outside, Ellie suddenly feels reluctant to leave. This castle that once filled her with fear has become a warm haven. Her greatest regret is not saying a proper goodbye to Kalin. That angry departure became their final meeting. Benedict's urging interrupts her thoughts. She notices him protectively, holding Lillian's hand. Then Ellie takes a deep breath and walks firmly toward the castle gates. To reclaim her name and freedom, she must move forward. But the figure by the carriage freezes her in place, her heart suddenly racing. Kalin smiles, asking if she made him wait too long. He says he's been reflecting on her words. This time, he wants to change fate. He takes her hand and places a gentle kiss on her fingertips, his voice gentle yet firm. He asks if she'll let him stay by her side forever. Hearing his request, Ellie smiles happily and softly says yes. The butler immediately signals the servants to bow. Everyone is shocked upon learning her true identity. Amid the orderly greetings, Ellie sighs helplessly. He reminds her with a smile that she's the one who wanted to reclaim her name. She tells everyone to rise, sincerely explaining her reasons for concealing her identity. Recalling the days and nights spent here, warmth fills Ellie's heart. The laughter and tears have become her most precious memories. Finally, she sincerely thanks everyone. Kalin helps her into the carriage, their gazes intertwining. This time, she no longer fears the unknown dangers ahead. Because someone walks beside her, this warmth dispels all fear. The carriage races across the snowfields as he asks about her plans. She says she'll first return to the Ashford estate to meet the impostor. These past days, she had Benedict secretly observing, only to find everyone was deceived. Even the old servants who knew her best were completely fooled, putting her on guard. Kalin immediately senses her concern, asking if she fears the impostor will die in her place. She admits the concern, but more than that, she wants to lure out the real killer. This risky gambit might actually become an opportunity. He agrees with her thinking, but warns that the mastermind won't be simple. She says firmly that with him by her side, she fears nothing. These words soften his heart, and he quietly confirms if their engagement still stands. She blushes, saying it's just for convenience, her voice growing quieter. He smiles and takes her hand, saying he's willing to be used by her. The moment the ring slips back onto her finger, her heart skips a beat. As she thanks him, she steals a glance but finds him as composed as ever. Ellie can't help wondering if he has no feelings for her. He gently strokes her fingertips and suddenly asks about reading memories. After confirming she cannot read his memories, he says lightly that's good, though complex emotions flicker in his eyes. The convoy enters Ashford territory, stirring murmurs among residents. People witnessing such a grand procession for the first time stop to watch. Kalin rides on his steed, his commanding presence drawing every eye. Inside the carriage, Ellie has disguised herself, a hood concealing her distinctive silver hair. According to plan, he'll make a grand entrance to the imperial palace, diverting attention, while she quietly returns to the Ashford estate to uncover the truth. When Benedict's carriage stops before the estate, the butler has been waiting. Ellie and Lillian follow behind with lowered heads, trying not to draw attention. The maids inside are still discussing the Duke's convoy that just passed. The butler apologizes while keenly observing Benedict's attendance. He says it's surprising the Duke values Benedict so highly. His gaze lingers on Ellie's hood, complimenting the unique northern attire. Benedict promptly interrupts, requesting to see the young lady. The butler immediately leads the way, saying the young lady is having afternoon tea in the courtyard. Beneath her hood, Ellie takes a deep breath and clenches her trembling hands. She's finally about to meet the person impersonating her. The courtyard at the Ashford estate is bathed in spring sunlight. But returning to this familiar estate, Ellie feels only suffocating oppression. The butler respectfully announces Dr. Benedict's arrival. When the impostor speaks, Ellie is shocked that even the voice is identical to hers. She slowly turns, and the face revealed makes Benedict gasp. That face looks exactly like another Ellie stepping out of a mirror. The impostor exchanges pleasantries with a smile, her tone so natural as if she were the true mistress here. Through her veil, Ellie observes carefully, noticing the impostor has perfectly replicated even her hairstyle and clothing. No wonder everyone was fooled. This impostor's work is flawless, until she notices the sapphire necklace around the impostor's neck that she's never seen before. Then a familiar voice comes from behind, making Ellie's body stiffen. Count Ashford's appearance is completely unexpected. The impostor calls out father excitedly, her voice full of affection. The Count walks right past Ellie and embraces the fake daughter tightly. Watching this display of fatherly love, Ellie's heart stings like being pricked by needles. This once lifeless courtyard is now filled with false laughter and joy. In the dead of night, Ellie silently infiltrates the impostor's bedroom. She watches the sleeping figure coldly, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The impostor wakes in panic, and seeing Ellie's face leaves her speechless with fear. Ellie pulls down her hood, revealing her true face, her tone cold as a blade. She advances, demanding why the impostor even mimics her mannerisms so perfectly. Her gaze falls on the necklace that never leaves the impostor's neck. She already has her answer. The impostor instinctively protects the necklace, her eyes darting away, unable to meet Ellie's gaze. Ellie gently touches the impostor's cheek and instantly reads the hidden memories. A vision flashes of a brown-haired woman reading a letter, then the sapphire necklace. The moment she recognizes the impostor's identity, Ellie's eyes widen in disbelief. The impostor breaks free and rushes toward the door in panic, crying for help. The commotion brings servants, and the entire estate lights up. The impostor throws herself into the arriving Count's arms, tearfully recounting her ordeal. The Count protects the fake daughter, demanding Ellie's identity. In this moment, Ellie finds it utterly absurd, her heart twisting in agony. She steps forward, her voice trembling as she reveals her true identity, the biological daughter he let die, whom he never once embraced. Seeing her father's protective hand around the impostor, she remembers the warmth she craved as a child. Those touches he avoided out of fear of having his memories read now become the sharpest blade. She asks through tears if he prefers this fake. The Count stands frozen while the impostor frantically makes excuses, her voice shrill. Ellie laughs coldly, saying the impostor doesn't know the real her well enough. She violently tears off the necklace. The gem traces a sapphire arc through the air. The impostor falls to the ground, frantically covering her face, but she can't stop herself from reverting to her true appearance. When Emma's familiar face appears before them, a storm of emotions surges through Ellie. The chaos leaves everyone stunned speechless, but Ellie remains remarkably calm. She decisively orders the knights to detain Emma. Seeing their hesitation, she demands sharply if they still doubt her identity. Everyone hurries into action. The butler supports the trembling count and starts to leave, but Ellie stops them. She wants to hear with her own ears everything that happened during this time. In the hall, important retainers gather, the atmosphere suffocatingly tense. Ellie looks at them in disbelief, her voice full of disappointment. She demands how these longtime loyal servants could be deceived by such a simple trick. Seeing everyone silent with lowered heads, she suddenly asks coldly if there are accomplices. The butler hastily denies it, his voice stuttering with nervousness. But Ellie stares into his eyes, pointing out how he remembers every detail of her habits. How could such an observant person never suspect the impostor's identity? Under her gaze, the butler falls into guilty silence before finally revealing the truth. He did sense something was wrong, but seeing the count so overjoyed, he couldn't bear to shatter the illusion. He even convinced himself to believe this was the young lady, with a changed personality after surviving death. Looking back now, this was an insult to the true young lady. He bows his head deeply, seeking forgiveness. But Ellie cares about only one thing. Was her father truly happy she returned? The father who always pushed her away was so delighted by her return? She suppresses the stirring in her heart and chooses to temporarily forgive everyone's foolishness. But she still needs time to uncover the truth and orders everyone to keep this secret. She deliberately raises her hand to brush her hair, reminding them of her ability to read memories. Everyone hastily agrees, no longer daring to show any negligence. Benedict comes to report, his expression grave as he delivers his diagnosis. The Count didn't deliberately reject his daughter. He suffers from a severe mental illness. Besides declining cognition, he can't even distinguish reality from the past. The butler protests in shock, thinking the Count was merely mentally exhausted from the blow. But Benedict says with certainty these symptoms have persisted for a long time, just deliberately concealed. Ellie suppresses her heartache and decides to send her father to a professional care facility. She climbs the hall steps one by one, her footsteps unusually clear in the silence. This place she once desperately fled, she will now personally control. No one can imprison her again, neither this estate nor fate. Stopping before her father's portrait, she turns to face all the retainers. Her voice firm, she announces that from this moment she assumes the position of head of house. Meanwhile, a meeting unfolds in the imperial palace. The emperor examines Kalin, whom he hasn't seen in ages, his tone laced with sarcasm. He says if not for his repeated requests, he might never see this duke in person. But Kalin suddenly laughs, the sound making the emperor pause slightly. He looks up directly at the emperor, his voice calm yet meaningful. He says, "Thank you, your majesty, for recognizing my value so highly." His Majesty Valdemar demands coldly from his throne, interrogating the Duke about his true purpose for coming to the capital. He reprimands him, calling it irresponsible to abandon his post in the far north for so long. Kalin responds with composure, stating that the far north's defenses are fully prepared. With a hint of sarcasm, he adds that if His Majesty is concerned, he's welcome to send troops to garrison the region. He then casually remarks that he fears the capital's soldiers would be unable to withstand the aberrant beasts. The Emperor suppresses his rage and asks how long he intends to remain in the capital. Kalin replies that this is not a decision he alone can make. Under the Emperor's curious gaze, he calmly announces that an engagement ceremony will soon be held in the capital. Meanwhile, Ellie sits in the study, penning a letter to Viscount Ravens. She first identifies herself, then requests that he honor his promise to provide assistance. The letter will include the beast collar horn and pendant, hoping the Viscount can authenticate these two magical artifacts. She specifically requests an investigation into the owner's information and the connection between the two items. After finishing the letter, she carefully reviews it, preparing for the next steps. At this moment, the butler enters pushing a cart loaded with documents, and she feels an immediate headache at the sight of the mountain of paperwork. She can't help but ask the butler what he's been doing all this time, and why so many documents have piled up. The butler explains apologetically that too many things have happened at the estate since she left. She recalls that Benedict had already escorted her father to the countryside yesterday for recuperation. The transfer of House Lord authority went surprisingly smoothly, with the servants calmly accepting this fact. She doesn't know whether to be glad that everyone has grown accustomed to the House Lord's absence, or to feel sorrowful about it. But now is not the time for sentimentality. She must shoulder responsibility for the family's future. Just then, she discovers an exceptionally ornate invitation tucked among the documents. The butler mentions this is the engagement invitation sent by Victor and Selena. Ellie opens the invitation and notes with irony that they apparently haven't even dissolved the engagement yet. The butler asks cautiously whether she plans to attend in person. She says indifferently that she won't send a substitute, telling the butler not to worry. The butler hastily explains he's concerned it might stir up painful memories, and she sighs, ending the topic. With the butler's assistance, she buries herself in processing the mountain of documents. Before she knows it, it's late at night, and the butler reminds her it's time to rest. She picks up the candlestick instead, saying there's still something she needs to do. Only 2 days remain until her appointment with Kalin, so she must make every moment count. Holding the candle, she heads toward the cellar, determined to uncover the mastermind. From Emma's memories, She learned that someone exploited the Count's condition to arrange this impostor, but no suspicious individuals were found within the estate, indicating the mastermind comes from outside. She's uncertain whether this is the same person who has been hunting her down. What confuses her even more is that they had Emma impersonate her only to accompany the Count. This makes her suspect that all of this was designed to draw her out. Unfortunately, Emma only corresponded with them through letters, making it impossible to know their appearance. In the dim candlelight, she finally arrives at the cellar prison where Emma is held. Emma senses the light and raises her head in confusion. Ellie gazes down at her, her eyes firm and cold. Tonight, she will extract the truth from Emma. Ellie walks slowly toward the prison, greeting Emma softly. She remarks that it's only been a few months. Yet Emma has changed so much she barely recognizes her. Seeing Emma show no reaction, Ellie pauses in silence, then says softly that she believes Emma isn't bad by nature. In countless rebirths, many servants stood by and did nothing as she died. Some even betrayed her, siding with those who wanted her dead. But Emma never betrayed her. Not once. Each time she died, Emma was always the first to shed tears for her. She asks Emma if someone threatened her, or if they exploited her weakness. Emma murmurs instead, saying what would a lady like her understand. Emma says bitterly, "I know I was never truly the one who was needed. I'm just one of your many servants, nothing more." Emma recalls the days when she could only watch Ellie from afar. She could only follow Ellie like a shadow. Who could understand that pain? Ellie never imagined Emma would think this way and freezes for a moment. She suppresses her shock and tells Emma not to change the subject. But Emma says through tears that she wanted to become the real Alethea. Even just once, she wanted to experience being loved by everyone. Ellie finds this notion utterly ridiculous. When has she ever been truly loved? Her lover's proposal was filled with schemes. Her former friend wished for her to die soon. Her father imprisoned her since childhood. She extinguishes the candle, concealing herself in darkness. She asks Emma softly, "Do you really want this kind of life?" Emma looks up, startled by Ellie's appearance in the darkness. Ellie turns to leave, confident that the mastermind will reveal themselves soon. She just doesn't know whether Emma will die here first, or if that person will come to rescue her. Watching the tears on Emma's face, Ellie turns back one last time and says, even though all the servants turned a blind eye to what Emma did, she has still chosen forgiveness. She hopes Emma will seek mercy while she still has compassion to give. Back at the estate, Emma's words still echo in Ellie's mind. Those meaningless words give her a pounding headache, and she just wants to find somewhere to rest. She finds herself standing in front of her father's study. This place was once always locked. Now holding the key, she gently pushes the door open and enters. The first thing she sees is the Count's coat still hanging on the back of the chair. She recalls Benedict mentioning that her father's mental state fluctuates. He had many opportunities to expose Emma but never did. Perhaps for her father this was actually easier. His daughter didn't die. Not only did she return alive, but she also chose to forgive him. He probably preferred to believe in this beautiful illusion. She gazes at the coat as if her father were sitting before her. She casually takes a book from the shelf. She flips through it aimlessly. Suddenly, a portrait slips from the pages. The painting shows the Count and Lady Ashford in their youth. One was a daughter of House Ashford, the other a commoner priest from the Sanctum Monastery. This love story that transcended class was her parents' tale. In her memory, their embracing figures appear, with her mother's ring glimmering faintly. 20 years ago, her father was a devout priest who dedicated his entire being to the divine. His world consisted only of prayer and asceticism. He was indifferent to all worldly matters, until that morning when he met her in the garden, the woman who would change his life forever. Her smile when she turned back captured his gaze, and he could never look away again. They fell in love recklessly, willing to give up everything for each other. Eventually, the former Duke compromised, allowing her father to marry her mother through marriage by adoption. A year later, Ellie was born, and everyone said it was a divine blessing. But Ellie's hand holding the portrait trembles uncontrollably. This wasn't a blessing. It was the beginning of a tragedy. First, her mother's two uncles died in accidents. Then the former Duke and Duchess passed away one after another. Finally, even her mother left her forever. House Ashford continuously crumbled after Ellie's birth, as if everything happened because of her. And her father probably saw her as the source of calamity that took his wife away. In his heart, there was only ever room for her mother. Disheartened, she closes the book. But she unexpectedly discovers a handle hidden in a gap in the bookshelf. She pushes lightly, and the bookshelf reveals another room hidden behind it. The books inside are even more ancient than those outside, emanating a mysterious aura. She picks one up to browse and finds it contains ancient prophecies about the 3 great guardian houses. This is actually a sealed chronicle strictly forbidden by the imperial family. She stares in disbelief at the walls filled with sealed chronicles, unable to understand how her father obtained them. Quickly flipping to the last page, she suddenly freezes. She remembers Kalin saying, the sections about House Ashford in the sealed chronicles had all been torn out, and the book before her is the same. Her family family's history has been deliberately erased. She quickly examines the other books in the hidden archive. She discovers that all the sealed chronicles have suffered the same damage, as if someone intended to erase House Ashford from imperial history entirely. And this hidden archive behind the study, the person who destroyed this history, it could only be her father. But why would he do this? As House Lord, what benefit does erasing the family history bring him? The butler's call suddenly echoes, and she hurriedly exits the archive. The butler says it's late and mentions he's worried she'll lock herself in the study like the Count always did. Only then does she realize that even the butler doesn't know about this hidden archive. She decides to keep this secret and not reveal her father's strange actions to anyone. She makes an excuse that she's tired and wants to return to her room to rest. She also tells the butler to have Lillian come see her. The next morning, a new maid clumsily helps her dress. The corset never seems tight enough, and she can't help but think of Emma's skilled technique. Just then, Lillian rushes in, forgetting even to knock. The maid is about to scold her, but Ellie urgently asks what happened. Lillian says breathlessly that things turned out exactly as she predicted. After digging through the flower pot Emma tended, she found a hidden letter inside. Ellie's eyes widen in shock. The person behind Emma has finally sent a letter. Ellie takes the letter Lillian hands her. She immediately dismisses all the servants. She has Lillian carefully check the doors and windows to ensure their conversation won't be overheard. This letter was found last night when she had Lillian search the places Emma frequented. The sender surely never expected that the real her would receive this letter. And this is information she extracted from Emma's memories. After reading the letter's contents, she freezes completely. Lillian asks worriedly if it's bad news, and she softly reveals what the letter demands. They actually want to meet her at midnight in her own estate. Lillian is too frightened to speak, but Ellie is furious at their audacity. Wasn't it enough to arrange an impostor to toy with her father? Now they dare to come in person? She laughs contemptuously, thinking they truly have nerve. Lillian asks nervously what she plans to do, and she calmly says there's no other choice. If she misses this opportunity, she might never encounter them again. Lillian suggests sending the impostor, but she firmly refuses, saying that would tip them off. She instructs Lillian to find a jeweler and prepare an identical pendant. She also needs to find the fastest horses and a messenger to contact Kalin immediately. At the very least, she must prepare to protect herself and not act rashly. At dusk, Selena eavesdrops on the maid's conversation. They gossip about rumors that Lady Ashford might still be alive. They also mention that the Duke of Winterfrost has arrived in the capital. Selena nervously bites her fingers, unable to believe what she's hearing. They agreed to act as if nothing happened. How did it come to this? Just then, her brother Austin enters, looking at her with displeasure. He corrects her, saying she should address him as Count Moran, not brother. He urges her to fix her appearance. Count Victor will arrive soon. He says coldly that he doesn't know what happened between them in the far north, but since they finally persuaded Victor to come, don't mess it up again. If she gets pregnant quickly, Victor won't be able to avoid this anymore. Selena trembles uncontrollably, remembering the joy of their engagement. Everything was so perfect then, but now it has completely fallen apart. She murmurs to herself, blaming everything on Ellie. At that moment, Ellie's figure seems to appear in the mirror. In a fit of rage, she smashes the mirror. She says bitterly that it's all Ellie's fault. Someone like her should disappear. Staring at the shattered pieces, she vows that this time she will end Ellie with her own hands. After nightfall, heavy rain begins to pour. Ellie waits at the agreed location. The appointed time has passed, and her heart fills with anxiety and unease. Who exactly is this person? What do they want from her? But if they are the one who has been hunting her down, this meeting is unavoidable. She reassures herself that she has made full preparations, wearing the replica pendant. As long as she can read their memories, she'll know the truth. Even if her identity is discovered, she still has Kalin to rely on. Just then, a voice emerges from the rain, saying this is their first meeting. Ellie stands frozen, listening as they continue. They ask if she's accustomed to living as Alethea. They add that she's been disguising herself well. Ellie forces herself to stay calm and turns to ask how they bypass the guards. They laugh softly and remove their hat, revealing brilliant golden hair. He says there's nowhere in the Valerian Empire he cannot go. Ellie recognizes in shock this face beloved throughout the entire empire. She whispers in disbelief, unable to understand why the crown prince would appear here. This man, called the Light of the Empire, is actually the mastermind behind everything.